Okay. Well, I got
Sounds like we just need to open a county truck garden.
maybe we should.
Set up a booth over here at the farmer's market.
Alternative source of revenue.
Yeah.
I just want to give them away. I don't care.
Boy, open it up. I think we better get going here. It is 8:30. I call this meeting of the Riley County Commission to order. Please, everybody, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, good Thursday morning, another cool morning this morning. Enjoy that because I'm going to have very many more of those for a while. So, and looks like we got through our primary election Tuesday night well too. So thank you to everybody for that. I know that's, the best of circumstances, difficult to get through. So without further ado this morning, we'll start off with some public comments. I see Julie's up here on Zoom to give us an update this morning. So we're going to start there. And the floor is yours, Julie.
All right. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So we are currently monitoring 150 active cases. We identified 104 new cases since last week. We also had to unfortunately report 3 new deaths. So that makes 7 deaths in just 2 weeks. That brings us to 52 deaths in the county. Our 14-day average percent positive is at 7.94%. We have had 81 breakthrough cases that we've identified so far. 77 have turned out to be Delta variant and 91 total variants of concern currently. We have 10 COVID positive patients in the hospital, 3 in the ICU, and only 1 in the hospital is vaccinated. We are offering mass testing again as our demand for testing has gone up. So we have collaborated with KDHE to be able to offer testing again, free of charge. Anyone who just drives up, no appointment necessary. That's on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 until 4 at the mall parking lot in the north side of the mall. This last Tuesday, they did 25 quick sal tests. So that's a saliva-based test, and 19 by now rapid antigen tests. We did find out since those rapid tests, we can get those results right then and there. There were 2 positives out of the 19, still waiting on results from the 25 saliva tests. We do have quite a few remote vaccine clinics coming up for the month of August. We just keep getting more and more. So pretty much every week we have at least 2 or 3 clinics. We were at central enrollment last Friday. There were 19 COVID vaccinations that we gave at central enrollment. And we also offered a walk-in vaccination clinic at the health department at that same time with all other vaccines for school-age kids. We had 40 kids show up at the health department. So it was a good turnout. We will be, on Saturday, we'll be down at the Douglas Center for Everybody Counts from 9 to 11 doing COVID vaccinations as well. Along with this, we're still vaccinating at the health department, in our clinic, Thursdays and Fridays by appointment. As of today, at KDHE website, 51.56% of those eligible have at least received their first dose, and 46.36% are fully vaccinated. That's for Riley County residents. And that's all I've got. Any questions?
Can you explain what the situation is at the airport with testing? And then we're not able to do that now.
They didn't feel comfortable with having outside individuals come in. We did have some outside individuals come in who weren't there for travel. They were just coming for testing. So Jesse reached out to me and said, administration does not feel comfortable with that. I agree. So we are going to make Friday, tomorrow, our last day, and then we're going to suspend our operations out there for the time being.
Okay. And just because this question's kind of came up and I really can't answer it, so I'm hoping you or somebody can. How did they go about actually distinguishing whether it's a actual COVID positive or a Delta positive or one of the other variant positive? What's the process then distinguishing that?
Yeah, so if we get somebody, especially somebody who's been fully vaccinated who tests positive, we'll send that to the state lab for sequencing, and then they'll get it back to us after a few days to determine which variant it is.
Okay. Is there any once you know what that is, do you do anything different with that in terms of approaching that with the positive patient?
Yeah, if we can, the problem is if we can get it in time, sometimes it takes days before we get that result back, but we can let the positive patient know what variant they have and to monitor for symptoms and really, it's for their information just to know that it could be a little more, could be more drastic symptoms. But what we found, fortunately, is that with those that are fully vaccinated, it's been very mild symptoms with the variants. So that's been good. That shows that the vaccine is protecting them with those illnesses.
Okay.
Yeah, Julie, what about your contact tracers? Are they following up on all these patients and people that are testing positive?
Yes, they are very busy every day. They're making their calls and doing their thing. And they get them as they come in, they make the calls. So yeah, we're pretty busy. We just hired 2 new contact tracers that started this past Monday. And we're looking at hiring 1 more to make us full staff again.
Now, are you isolating people that have been in contact, or what is the process that you're using?
So the process is the same. So if individuals test positive, they're to isolate for 10 days. If they're a close contact and they're vaccinated, they do not. They're exempt from quarantine. We just ask them to monitor for symptoms, and it is recommended that they wear a mask since they are considered a close contact. But we don't quarantine those that are vaccinated. If they're unvaccinated, we want them to quarantine for 10 days.
Julie, just as a follow-up to her question on contact tracing, what is it showing us? Is it showing us the same basically structure at this point in time, small events, intimate gatherings, that sort of thing?
Yeah, small events, small gatherings, household contacts, that sort of thing.
Okay. With the fair and everything happening, did we see anything from there?
Not yet. When was that? 2 weekends ago?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we should start seeing some, if anything, from that. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't checked with the contact tracers recently in the past couple of days. So I'll check with them today to see if they've seen anything from that specifically.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, I had one follow-up question. What was the percentages you said that we have? You gave us 7% that we are vaccinated, or what was that?
So the 7.94% was the 14-day average percent positive.
Okay. I'm sorry, I missed writing it down. So,
I think she said it was 46 for Riley
46 for
County. And that would
County.
include basically everything that's reported through WebIZ at the moment, right?
Yes, that's for fully vaccinated.
Private totals.
Okay.
So, okay. Got a long ways to go.
Yeah, a long ways.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Thank you, Julie. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We have any other public comments this morning? Any public notices, anything fun like that? No? Monday, yeah, I already seen that one, so, okay. Well, that be the case, I'll go ahead and close off the public comment section. We'll move on to commissioner comments and start with Commissioner Kimball.
Yeah, Tuesday night, I attended a public meeting on the White Canyon area roads. They had proposed an improvement district to upgrade 2 of the roads. The cost for the 2 roads is estimated $150,000 for 6 residents. They still want to proceed with it. They also pointed out that there were 2 more property owners in the district, so we've got to go back and revise some of our stuff. There are several steps to get it all completed. There has to be at least one thing to work on is a lease agreement with the Corps of Engineers, because actually the road goes through the Corps of Engineers property, which isn't allowed anymore, but back in the 60s for some reason got through. And then representatives from the district will be coming into our meeting to see if we're wanting to contribute to the costs. When everything is set up, then Craig will be in presenting the district overall thing once we got all these other things for approval. And the township has agreed to take over the road for their maintenance once they're up to standards. They weren't ever up to standards. The township hasn't been able to maintain them. There is a section of the road that will still be underwater when it floods, but this will give them better access otherwise, because it's not a great road. I've been down there a few times to see it. Overall, I thought the meeting went real well, kind of discussed what they were looking for and things, so I think it turned out well. Wednesday, I attended the military relations lunch. It's good to get to talk to a lot of people from the area, meet some new people. The speaker was Andrew Brown, who's a commissioner for behavioral health services for Kansas. And he discussed behavioral health services for enlisted and veteran family, military members, state, and then talked about suicide prevention stuff they're working on. They're making a coalition, suicide prevention coalition across the state. So right now there's just several different groups scattered, and they're trying to get everybody going together. Had a lot of good information.
Okay, Commissioner Foki.
Okay, Tuesday, I attended the meeting of the Business Advisory Committee of the Chamber of Commerce. Discussion centered basically on how I've been getting acclimated to the county commission and what my concerns and ideas were for the future. And finance issues, upcoming sales tax initiatives also came up. I gave them a copy of our draft that we got on Monday. And I emphasized that it was not a final version. So that was, maybe they can give us some ideas and some comments. Also discussed were the different boards and committees that I sit on, especially the law board. They suggested that the city and county come together and come up with appointment process. So I said, we'd already done that. So anyway, they didn't like the contentious things that were going on. Later in the day, I went up to Keats Park in response to a parent that had emailed me who lives up there, his child. He was upset with the playground area being torn up for so long. And so I went up there and walked around for a while, talked to a few people that were walking on the trails. It does have a big pile of sand in the original, and it has a big pile of dirt in the new one. I guess it became like a pond almost when it rained, and a lot of weeds and everything. I did talk to John about it yesterday, and he's going to put it on his radar. There's been all sorts of things as far as
They're really moving some stuff around there.
Yeah.
It takes time to get that accomplished and for that
Yeah.
for the spring.
And John said it'd probably be this fall before they get it fixed up. So that's a great park. So whatever we can do to help out up there would be great. Later in the day, I went over the new Be Able facility, which is the old pawn shop down on Fifth Street. They're getting it put together. We were planning for the upcoming community meal and haircuts that are going to be held Monday evening. Local hairdressers, the Platinum and Hair Company, will bring about 6 or 7 hairstylists. So we're trying to figure out how to get it all set up. So anyway, throughout the past couple of days, I've had many discussions on mask requirements. There's anger among vaccinated people that they're being punished because of those who haven't received vaccines for whatever reason. I think it's an issue that we need to talk about and deal with. On Tuesday, I also attended the meeting of Common Table. The discussion was whether to open up our facilities for in-person dining. At this point, First Presbyterian Church is the only facility able to accommodate seating inside because they have the big gym called Presby Place. The other ones are planning maybe September, maybe later, just depending on what happens with the COVID. Yesterday, I had to go to an appointment with a retinologist in Topeka concerning my right eye. Got some major problems that have to be surgically fixed. So it's scheduled in Kansas City on August 17th, which is a Tuesday. I'm gonna have to work around that. It may or may not be a long recovery process. Hopefully not.
Just get a really cool eye patch.
Yeah, they're going to give me a
Yeah.
patch, but I don't think I'll wear it. I'll have it off. I have to go back to Topeka the next day and get it off. So I may be bruised. So I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully it will all go well. That evening yesterday evening, I went to handbill practice, but had some problems seeing because they had dilated both of my eyes during the day. So everything was a little weird. But that's all I have.
Okay, Well, for me, Monday afternoon, I met with Dennis Butler, director of RCP at his office to discuss a few current items and a couple questions I had and a couple of the related topics. So conversation went well, and I always appreciate you taking time to sit down and chat when needed along the way with not having a law enforcement background and being on the law board. It's important to get perspective sometimes, and he's always open and willing to do that. So I appreciate it. Tuesday afternoon, I met with Ed Klimak, director of the Wesley Business Association here in my office. He had several members in town from Hutton Construction in Wichita, and he was providing a tour of the area for them and wanted them to have the opportunity to speak to somebody from Riley County. They're vested in the area, working on several projects, including the new Junction City High School that's finishing up, and the big church over in St. Mary's. And yeah, they were also part of the remodeling efforts at Hale Library on the campus of K-State. So a really good discussion, dialogue. Agreed if I want to at some point in time, I could have a chance to tour each one of those projects if I'd like, and I may take them up on all that, except maybe for Junction City High School. I don't know, as a Manhattan High, I could bring myself to do that. The other two will probably be perfectly fine, but yeah, I don't really have to stretch on that one.
Somebody might crumble if you walk in.
Yeah, that's what I told him. I might spontaneously combust if I walk into the building, so it would be good for everybody. So I'll have to think a little harder on that one. So Ed and I also spoke on a couple of other local related issues, and we'll probably follow up with you at some point in time when appropriate. So also Tuesday, I did catch NACO's information sessions. They're going to be doing a series of these, digging into the various eligible uses outlined in the Treasury's interim final rules. I keep kind of changing and just kind of slow and methodical at this particular point in time. This particular section was of interest to me because it focuses on how these allocations can be used to support critical investments in broadband, ensuring residents can have access to available high-speed, reliable, and affordable coverage. Basic stuff at the moment, but certainly in the realm of possibilities if something comes up along the way. It sounds like if that's something we or other counties would like to do moving forward. So yesterday, had another discussion via Zoom on the Aggieville parking garage. Looks like we're going to look at some other potential funding mechanisms moving forward at this particular point in time. So this conversation is still very, very fluid. There's really no really plan in place at this point in time, and we'll just have to see how things transpire as we continue discussions moving in the future. And then finally, last night I attended the Ogden City Council meeting, gave them an update on our plans for the 0.2 cent road and bridge sales tax. So happy to hear that we're moving forward on a couple other county related items. Director Butler was also there to give them an update from RCPD, and then they discussed some options for the those Riverside lots down on the other end that went unsold in the tax sale. So kind of keep in mind to kind of pay attention to see what their plans are with that, because obviously that's best interest for all of us. Lastly, just wanted to take a moment this morning to say, for everybody that's out on the roads, just be careful. I don't know what it is, but we've just had an insane amount of accidents here lately. The one in Topeka should be in an action movie somewhere. I can't believe there was only one critical person that was involved in that. But whatever the issue is, just give yourself some time, be a little patient, give yourself some time getting from point A to point B. And for God's sakes, if you have a phone, just put the damn thing down. It's not, these things aren't worth it. They really aren't worth it. One moment you're alive and well, and the next you're gone. It's not worth it. So that's just my little soapbox this morning, and I think I'll just stop going my head on that. So just be safe out there. That's the point. So we'll start with some business then, Rich.
First item is contract for South Otter Road Bridge Replacement Project, Ebert Construction, the amount of $319,332.63.
Yeah, move to sign and approve the contract from Ebert, the amount of $319,332.63.
I would second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded on the South Otter Bridge Replacement Project. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chairman, please.
Well, we don't have to sign all that.
Oh, man, you didn't tell me that.
We'll have to pay.
I was doing hand exercises yesterday. I can't, we gotta do stand. No, I keep trying, but it's just not gonna
No,
work.
it's gonna work.
My time's gonna run out. See if I got all those. I think I did.
Next, commissioners need a motion to approve Mid-Continental Restoration to perform extra work on the courthouse in the amount of $32,571 from the CIP fund.
That's covering all the things that we discussed. Or no?
This is for the stuff on the south,
Right.
out the west, where we talked about doing
The seal up on
the
top and everything.
landing and whatnot. Those were already approved, so that is not part of this. This is strictly
Okay.
south base,
So this is just to complete everything that we discussed the one morning on that tour.
correct?
And nothing on the west side then.
Yeah.
It is the west side too, south and west. That's a lot, that's not.
Just say I was just pleasantly surprised at that total. So, yeah,
Subject to change.
sure.
To make you feel better.
Of course.
Yeah. We're still in a very small amount considering what I was thinking we're gonna be. So, if there's a change order or two with that, so be it. So we'll go ahead and take a motion to approve, as I do think that's something we need to get done.
Yeah. Okay, I would move to approve the Mid-Continental Restoration to perform the extra work on the courthouse in the amount of $32,571 from the CIP fund.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded on approval of some extra stone repair and courthouse restoration project. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, I need a motion to approve letter of support of Twin Valley Communication application for NTIA funds for broadband deployment in Keats, Kansas.
This just popped up on the.
Yeah, and Scott emailed me Tuesday afternoon after the original agenda came out and said that they have a proposal on the table from the Office of Broadband Technology through the State Department of Commerce. Not the first time this has happened. It all happens kind of quick and they have to get it together. So their letter of a recommendation, the final proposal has to be in by the end of the business day today. So thankfully, Rich and Cindy were able to sneak them in here to get this done, but they are going to be burying fiber. I don't specifically know where out in the Keats area. I just know it's Riley County and it's broadband and I'm all for it. So,
They just put in that's what their tower is.
Yeah.
is for.
Yeah. And I think some of that's going to match up. This will be a little bit more permanent. That some of those are probably more of a temporary fix rather than a permanent solution. So when you start burying cable, it gives you a whole lot more different options. So.
And just so you know, background, the prior board also did do a letter of support for the original application.
Correct.
So, yeah, there's some history for it.
Yeah, I'd move to approve Twin Valley's application for NTIA funds.
Yeah, I would second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded on Twin Valley's communication applications for NTIA funds. All those in favor?
Aye.
All three, please.
Which I think last time they were okay with just an email version of the final signed letter, so we can take care of that if you want.
Okay. I also emailed Scott this morning, told him we did get it on the agenda, so he can either call or stop in and meet me too. Said that, just email him back.
Next, Raleigh County Personnel Action Forms for the following: Gilbert Trail, transfer from Public Works Operations to Public Works Solid Waste as a Public Works Operator 2. Lindsay Mason for a transfer as an intern at the Planning and Development Department. Emily Gilbert Esperanza, a new hire as an intern in the Health Department as an intern.
So the intern is from K-State or?
Gosh, that's a great question. I don't know. I don't remember, is there better thing? There's two interns. In development, they really reached out and found that person on their own. And it was just a really good fit, because that's kind of a unique skill set.
Yeah.
And then the health department actually has quite a few people doing different roles. So they have what they would call internally interns, shadowing, some of those credits that they get depending on what they're studying in the health field. And so we're kind of trying to get those all compiled, and for payroll, we're gonna call them all interns, even though they may have a different internal title or responsibility. But those, the health department customers on a variety of schools. And both undergraduate and graduate. So
It'd be good to meet all of them one day. I would
Wouldn't that be
try and
fun?
get, yeah.
okay, I'll try to put that on my back of my mind and see what we can do. I think they would enjoy that as well. It's a good experience, and obviously this generation of employees is the next generation that we'll be looking to hire, so,
Sure.
yeah.
I think it'd
And
be good to
ultimately taking
meet.
care of us and we all get
Yeah.
old.
Yeah, particularly the health department, right?
But yeah, let's be nice to them.
Yeah. But even planning and development, those will be the leaders in that and will affect us, throughout their life, their professional life cycle. It's a really good way to look at it.
Yeah, maybe we could have like a little meet and greet kind of thing with some
Yeah.
cookies and.
That's a great idea. Things like that make a big difference.
Yeah.
They can see how the leadership of Riley County is interested and engaged, so.
Yeah.
It's been great.
That's-
Thank you. Ready for the minutes when the board is. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Everybody have minutes up and ready to go? Okay. Go ahead and start off with page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Lastly, page 10.
I would make a motion to approve the minutes from our August 3rd meeting. Second, I'm sorry, August 2nd meeting, 2021.
Oh, that wasn't the second.
Yeah, no.
August 2nd.
Okay.
I'll
Okay,
second.
you're officially seconding the second now, okay. It's been moved and approved to approve the minutes from the August 2nd, 2021 BOCC meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Tentative agenda, okay, commissioners?
Yes.
Any items for next week's press conference?
Keep wanting to surprise you with one sometime, but it just keeps not happening.
You never know what's gonna pop up.
That's for sure, especially today's day and age. Next, we have bid openings.
And it is 9 a.m., so we can go ahead and open this public hearing up for the specials removal of the First Christian Church. Looks like we have 2, and I'm assuming that includes the one from this morning.
Yeah, that's
Okay. Okay. First one I have is from Associated Insulation, and is here in Manhattan. Looks like asbestos remover lump sum total is $18,294.
That includes friable and,
Only friable. Just-
Only
That's all you
friable?
have to legally do.
okay.
Last three numbers.
294, 18. There's also a check here for 914. I'm not sure what that's for.
So they-
Oh, okay. See it. This is
Yeah, not
maybe
big
they
line,
mixed that.
instead of big line.
It's listed on the sheet, so, okay. Sending that along with all the paper clips.
First bid was from Associated Insulation. Total $18,294.
Second one I have, the last one is from River City Remediation. Is that Clearwater, Kansas? Big difference. Lump sum I see listed here is $115,886.
That's quite a discrepancy.
Yeah,
I think the first bid we got years ago was 56, I think.
I think we estimated roughly 65 at one point in time, I thought.
Or 65, that's right, yeah. I had the numbers.
And that's, and remember that previous estimate included the non-friable, so.
Yeah. 115, do you think they put in the non-friables too?
It might get you in the building.
This is friable outside sanctuary ceilings, first floor basement soffit ceiling, stairwells, $17.32 per square foot. Yeah.
Staff will evaluate.
Yep.
Yeah. Bid is River City Mediation. Bid $115,886.
The biggest difference there was just the total charge per square foot. And that's the whole thing.
Kind of meet somewhere in the middle, I would guess. I mean, it seems like such a huge
They didn't
discrepancy.
really want it.
And they put, yeah, they put some out of the city charges probably in there somewhere too.
Where's Clearwater? That's not too far.
That's west of Wichita,
Is it?
isn't it? Yeah.
You guys can take a look at it.
The bids be referred to staff for their review and recommendation.
Second.
Been been moved and seconded on staff approval on asbestos removal from the First Christian Church. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next commissioner, we have Michael Bowler at 9:15. Michael?
Good morning, Sam. Good morning, Mike. How's everybody doing this morning?
Delightful. The weather has been outstanding.
Well, don't get used to it.
Weekend sounds.
But it's important to praise the weather when we have good weather.
True.
That's right.
Well, it's that first little hint of, fall before we get our second summer and then hopefully football season.
Yeah.
Don't like being out skating. It's 100 degrees.
Oh, yeah, been there,
Yeah.
done that.
Won't do it this year, that's for sure.
There was a time at Arrow Stadium, when we first moved to town, it was like 100.
Oh, I did, I went one of those arrowhead, that was unbearable.
It was,
Because there's no air movement in the
No.
air.
we were up there, facing west on, up high, and just, people were passing out all
Yeah.
around. Ambulances were coming, taking them out.
That was, yeah, I was there one time for the first game was Arrowhead, and then it was the next year was the championship with Oklahoma. And it was so cold.
Oh, yeah, I
There
was
was-
at that one too.
And it was, everybody's cramped in because everybody had about every coat they owned wrapped around. So you couldn't even sit, you had to sit like this in seats because everybody was about this wide with all the sweaters and coats there.
We were sitting around all these Oklahoma fans. It
Oh.
wasn't a pretty thing.
I didn't have that.
Showed me, we got some.
There you go, good deal.
We love that. That was yours from your garden?
Oh, my zucchini's like on steroids.
We love them. We saute them up. They're delicious.
Yeah, Brussels zucchini and yellow squash and butternut squash. Butternut squash is really good too.
Susan just sautés them in butter and a little bit of garlic salt, I think.
Yeah, Darnell does too.
Oh, just outstanding.
Yeah, we love it. Yeah, I've got so much.
All right.
Sorry.
We'll get another round of hot weather here. Mother Nature might take care of all the weeds and grass for you the rest of the year, huh?
Well, and the hot weather makes them, plants don't respond to herbicide when it's very warm.
Mhm.
And so, this kind of weather where we had some rain Saturday and then cooler weather, they'll really uptake, technically downtake the herbicide. And so it makes our spraying more effective.
Mhm.
As I've said so many times, Mother Nature really dictates how we do our job.
Yeah.
Or we we can kind of curve her decisions by 10 or 15% either direction, but really at the end of the day, she makes the decisions with when we mow, when we spray, how effective the quality of.
That's why I know a lot of the sprays, they don't use it, but if it's over a certain temperature, that the spray, weed spray is not good.
Yeah, well,
They just don't soak it up enough or something, I guess.
in temperature is important in that there's something called temperature inversion. And what happens with that, it can itemize or volatilize the chemical we spray and turn it into a fog. And then that fog can drift.
Oh.
And that,
Can this particular fog drift to take out smoke out of the air? Because that'd be an extra benefit right now.
yeah, that.
My whole week's just been, wow.
But similar to the problem we're having with the haze, imagine if that was herbicide.
Oh, yeah, no.
Sterilized. Yeah, so we gotta be, we're very cognizant of temperature and temperature inversions, which occur later in the summer, early fall, when you have some different influx of weather. You'll have a low ground temperature. I should say a high ground temperature. The temperature in the ground will be warm and the air will be cool, and then it will create essentially steam.
Yeah.
And the steam will take the herbicide with it. And that can drift for a while. Potentially cause me to have to come in front of commissioners and explain why we might have to pay for soybean.
Pay for some of this field.
Right, yeah. So we gotta be real careful about that. Knock on wood.
I was gonna say, as I know of, that hasn't happened yet, so let's keep it that way, yeah.
It has in other counties.
Oh, I've heard it,
Yeah. Gotta be real careful.
some of the gardening websites I'm on, people screaming, oh, they sprayed next door and killed all my garden.
Yeah. Well, it's important to explain when people think about herbicide, they don't think about like the weed department as being conservationists, but we truly are in this. We're trying to maintain invasive species of plants from invading our native species.
To crowd out, yeah.
And so it's a pretty big deal, but people may look at it like you're spraying all this chemical. Well, there's a purpose.
Yeah.
And we only spray what we need. We don't get crazy.
Supposed to be
9:15.
Do you like sweet potatoes?
I do.
Kind of what a butternut squash is like. You bake them in the oven.
Oh,
I've
good.
done that with a little bit of honey and brown sugar or something like that as a glaze.
3 of them upstairs there in the third floor break room up there. And they're huge ones, really huge.
Yeah, these zucchini and squash are since pretty big. It's just me, so I can't go all to work through all that, but that's okay. It's
You can
okay.
split one maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
I
good.
can never eat a whole butternut squash either, but you can freeze them if you.
Well, you can do some other things. You can cut them into strips and you can do some
Yeah.
stuff with it. I don't know how until February I lived without an air fryer. That thing's the most amazing kitchen
Yeah.
appliance of probably since the microwave, especially when you're a bachelor.
A lot of people use them.
I basically all but quit using the stove.
That's it. Yeah. My
So I need
daughter
to
has
boil
one.
some eggs or, some
Everything.
simple stuff. I don't think I've used the oven in months. Maybe I can sell my likeness to air fryer companies, and make money.
There you go. See you on the commercial.
Yeah.
Right.
Good luck.
I have college eligibility left, so that's
You
part
know
of it.
George Foreman.
Yeah. Yeah. Got one of those at home too.
Yeah, all these gadgets, yeah, in the kitchen.
That's when you know you're an adult, when you know you get excited over your kitchen gadgets. Well, we'll move on from this conversation
Yeah, okay.
to talk about some weeds and some other things. So-
Very well. Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Mike Bowler with the Riley County Noxious Weed Household Hazardous Waste Monthly Update. Starting on the noxious weed mowing, spot spraying for noxious weeds on county roads and contracted townships has been completed. We completed that at the end of July. I would like to note that I have been contacted by a couple of townships that have not been contracting with us as of late. They've let me know that there's been some changing of the guard, so to speak, and they are interested in moving forward in reestablishing that relationship as the townships are getting a little fuzzy, I guess, would might be one of the words. So looking forward to next spring, we should have more townships. I think we had 5 this year, but there's it just ebbs and flows. But it would appear with them reaching out that we'll have more townships that will want our service in the spring. So that's good news.
Mike, which ones do you do and which ones are looking at it?
Oh, Rich put me on the spot. I'm trying to think. There's some that we regularly do, but I think Grant Township reached out, and maybe Wildcat. Wildcat does about every other year, but I know a couple have reached out.
Mhm.
But like I said, we had 5 this year, and I don't have that list off the top of my head.
That's good. No, I was just curious. Thank you.
But yeah, I'm happy that the number is going up. It had kind of declined a little bit, the budgets being what they are. Sometimes that can be a lower priority, but talking with a couple of them, they said that there have been some changes at the administrative level in those townships, and they'd like to start doing it. So good news. KDOT, we also contract with them, and we are still in the process of spraying for KDOT. We're going to start spot spraying for Cerisa Lespedeza, and that will continue throughout the month. Their budget process is a little different, but they've got some monies this year to really asking us to hit it pretty hard. So we're going to be pretty involved with the KDOT contract this year. Second round of mowing on county roads is 75% complete, with the goal of being completed by the end of August. I'm pretty pleased with that. That's going to be finishing the second round a lot earlier than usual. And that's being with shorthanded here for the last couple of weeks on our mower operator. So we're ahead of schedule, which is good news on that. And if I skip ahead just a little bit, good news is that we did hire an operator mower position. Daniel John Reeves has joined Riley County, and he brings over 20 years of heavy equipment operating experience to the table. Very positive attitude, very great interview, and I'm excited to have him as part of the team. And I think he's excited for some change. So he worked for KDOT he worked for Pot County Public Works for over 20 years, and then has recently been employed by KDOT. So glad to have his experience on board. Maintaining lagoon ponds continues. We mowed out Deep Creek Lagoon and Terror Heights Lagoon the month of July, and they'll probably need to be mowed out again before winter. We keep those mowed as it's important to keep the airflow across the lagoons, and that's something that we've worked in cooperation with Public Works, helping them out, keeping them maintained. On the HHW, we are going to be doing another clean out on the 14th of August, which is a Saturday from 8 to noon. This has been, again, wildly popular. We set a record last month with over 100 citizens taking advantage of that, and we almost came to the point where we couldn't take any more. We were really overloaded on the trailer. So that's a good thing and kind of a difficult thing because that ties us up for a while. So we're processing a lot of material out there, but I can tell you that is a wild popular. We get thanked profusely while we're down there that we provide that service. So I wanted to pass that on. I always tell them that it's something that commissioners allow us to do. So I make sure I give you guys credit. So they want to pass on continuous thank you while they're down there. If you ever have the opportunity to come down there and see Howie's and that clean out when we're down there, it's kind of controlled chaos. It's kind of fun, really. The Riley County facility, we do have some recycled latex paint, although we are running very low on latex paint as the demand has been very high. My understanding is there's still somewhat of a shortage on latex paint. And so if somebody knows where they can get it for free, love to come by. Let's see. Clean Harbors clean out occurred on July 27th, and our next clean out is in September. They did make us aware that costs will be going up due to COVID-related expenses, the cost of diesel fuel, et cetera. They have not really put a specific number on that. We deal with Clean Harbors through Big Lakes, and then, of course, eventually that is passed down to Riley County to some degree. I don't think that the increase in fees is going to be dramatic, but things like the drums and the equipment that we use from them is just going up, as quite frankly as everything. I mean, it's kind of to be expected on some levels. But they did make us aware. Hopefully that won't be too much of an impact. We've been able to keep Big Lake's budget flat for the last, well, since I've been here. I've either reduced it or kept it flat. So I'm pleased to hopefully we'll keep that trend going. CWDAK had their 2021 summer conference here in Manhattan. All employees from our department were able to attend and receive training hours towards their certification. Of course, our employees attended at different days, but we had some excellent speakers, several professors from K-State, and in particular, Dustin Weisbrod from the Raleigh County Police Department came and gave a presentation on bomb-making material and some things that we should look for in our facilities, as FBI has recently discovered that sometimes HHW facilities are utilized to gain access to material that might not be readily accessible in other places. Like, well, I won't mention what those products are. Suffice it to say, we don't put those type of products on the shelf, but there's a few things that we have implemented at our shop too to help discourage that process. And maybe moving forward, may look at implementing some video cameras out there, just so we have a record who comes and goes. Noxious Weed Department assisted with the clerk's office with the deployment of PPE and election equipment for the primary. The cooperation and coordination, as always, through the clerk's office is just very impressive how organized they are. We just have to show up and we're handed a piece of paper and told where to go, when to be there, what box to unlock, what box to change. So they make it very easy for us. So I appreciate the cooperation through there. That's quite an undertaking that the clerk's office goes through. So happy to help with that. So with that, commissioners, that's our monthly update. What?
Sericea lespinosa.
I want you to say that 20 times really fast.
What's their common name?
Sericea lespinosa.
Sericea lespinosa. Yeah, it used to be an ornamental plant that was introduced. A lot of the blame for Sericea comes from the CRP program, specifically Wildlife and Parks utilize it as a cover crop, seed producing cover crop for quail and pheasant, that sort of thing. Thought it would be a good idea. Sericea lespinosa is allelopathic, meaning that it kills other plants around it. It secretes an acidic type thing. It's allelopathic, and so it will literally take over a pasture. And it takes a few years, but it's a very aggressive plant. It's a woody style plant, and it is difficult to control. Quite frankly, most noxious weeds you will never eliminate. We just search for control. Thankfully, we have a chemical called Escort that is this time of year is what you would put on Sericea, and it's cheap, $2 an acre cheap. And so there's really no reason not to treat your pasture. And quite frankly, it will bring down your property value of your pasture because it will take over a pasture. Cattle won't eat it, and it's bad. That's why it's on the noxious weed list. But yeah, Sericea lespinosa. It's an interesting word, but no, there's not an easier word. A lot of
There isn't a common name of pigweed or something like that.
SL is what we like to call
Okay.
it. SL, yeah. But from professors on down, and a lot of times there's different takes on how exactly you pronounce that word, but everybody
I'm gonna
kind of,
question how
if
you
you get in the
pronounce that.
ballpark, yeah, if you get in the ballpark, everybody knows Cerisa, it has pasture ground, and they'll know what we're talking about.
Is there an easy way to identify it?
You know, that's one of those plants that is often misidentified. I got a complaint that we had some on our property at the University Gardens out there, and it's often misidentified. I don't know how I would describe it other than it's a small bushy type plant that has a unique green color to it. And the stem is very fibrous and it's woody in nature, but this time of year, it'll start getting white blooms on it and then it produces seed. The problem with Cerisa is the seed can live in the ground for up to 30 years. So your ground may not have pasture on it or have Cerisa for the last 15 years. The problem is just when the conditions are right, as we discussed earlier about Mother Nature controls this, and then all of a sudden, poof, you've got Cerisa on your property and you're pointing to your property neighbors thinking that came from them. But the likelihood was the seed's been in the ground for decades. So the seed control it's just a difficult plant to control. I tell everybody that keep in mind when controlling weeds, it's a marathon, not a sprint. This is not a spray once and done. If it was, we wouldn't have an option.
Down by the creek.
I can just picture Jack being stuck.
Look up kudzu. We're one of the only counties that has a small patch of kudzu. And it's a mystery how it got here. We think that it came up on some KPNL trucks from down south when we had some serious power outages. And our breakout is right across from Vista on the fence line there. And that is a scary, scary weed. If you look at kudzu, what's done down south.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
Oh, yeah, it literally just covers everything. It looks like something out of science fiction.
They have a lot of that in Virginia.
I'm sorry?
They have a lot of that in Virginia,
Yeah.
all over
yeah.
trees.
Well, it's a unique, it's an eye-catching plant, as all of these plants are kind of unique. Musk thistle is a relatively unique looking plant.
That's a pretty purple flower.
And when it
That's when
blooms,
you know it's too late.
yeah, and that's when the phone calls. That's one of the weeds that's so prominent. Cerisa is kind of hard to spot. Once you recognize the color, I can almost go on GIS if it was in the spring or time to spot that certain color green. It's got a unique green.
I have a neighbor that's a farmer and his next door neighbor likes the pretty purple flower and gives him fully hay.
It's kind of like bindweed.
Well, and that's how a lot of these things get started. They get started as an ornamental that people plant in their garden thinking it's pretty, and then they realize it's invasive to the native species of plants we have in Kansas. And that's what we have to understand. My job is to protect the native plants that we have. It's not to kill stuff, it's to protect what belongs here. So, any further questions, Commissioner? Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Next, Commissioners, you have Tammy Robinson on the 2022 budget work session.
Welcome back, Clancy.
Thank you.
How was your holiday?
Fast. It was fun.
Well, yeah. I don't know if I'm finally unplugged or not, but
To the extent possible.
how's the weather?
Outstanding.
Yeah.
It only rained one day, and that was the day we were ready to get out of the sun a little bit.
Where did you go?
It's a place called Surfside Beach, Texas. Little funky beach community. I'd never heard of it. My sons had rented there before.
Mary took off last week as well. She went to New Mexico. She said she was having her.
Yeah.
She was gonna try to record for a couple days. Understand. Probably have surgery.
She's out of surgery.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, it is 9:30, Cammy.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Tammy Robinson, Budget and Finance Officer. I'm here with what I hope is our last budget work session, depending on what you guys have to say or what you're thinking today, but hoping to make this relatively short for you with as little discussion as necessary. So I did create a little memo just to let you know where we're at after the adjustments that you had requested. Had a lot of numbers in my head and I miscalculated off the top of my tongue the other day. Commissioner McKinley was correct in his immediate assessment. So just want to clarify that we do have a $202,568.91 that we need to adjust to get to that flat mill levy goal that you have in mind. And you did approve 200,000 with the CIP transfer decrease. So I did make that. Because RCPD is a big part of us going over the flat mill levy, I did go back and look at their fund to determine if there was anything else we could do there. With the firing range, we did estimate some utilities. And at this point, we haven't had to spend any of those dollars. So with that, I'm pretty comfortable decreasing the utility line item for 2021 by $2,400. Which then will adjust the beginning cash coming into 2022, which has an effect on our levy at the end. The delinquency calculation is also affected because that is a calculation based on our needs. So that also is decreased by $255. Not huge, but it gets us where you're wanting to get. So with that, you can look at the budget developmental worksheet. I'm gonna make this big for this point, just so it's a little easier to read, hopefully. So if you look at this second page on the top, you have the budgeted revenue on the left, of course, and the budgeted expenditures on the right. On the right, it also gives you the calculation of where we are with our mill levy. And you can see right here in the middle, we are at a 0% increase from prior year's budget 2021. Have a couple of figures for you. I'll just let you know. On the general in 2021, it was at 35.368. With your adjustments that you've made, it's at 35.128. Bond and interest in 2021 was at 0.025. And in 2022, we do not need any levied funds in 2022. The building was at 0.513. It's now at 0.526, so that was just a little bit of an increase. And RCPD was at 6.379, and it's now at 6.631, which is a 0.252 increase. So the general fund decreased by 0.24, bond and interest decreased by 0.025, and then building was an increase of 0.013, RCPD an increase of 0.252. That nets out to a 0 overall. Are there any questions or concerns or any additional figures that I can get for you?
It's good to me.
Yeah, that's where we wanted to be.
I've got like 5 more things.
Okay, let's
No,
go.
I'm just no, I think we got it where we need it. It's challenging, but may create some challenges still next year, but I think we'll be able to work through it okay.
Yeah, and I'm positive that we're going to have some good increases in revenue going
I am
forward.
too, at least for the next maybe year or two anyway. Yeah, I would second that. So good work.
Yeah,
And we can
I
always-
appreciate all the work you guys have done. It's just
Yeah,
been
we had a
tough.
good team looking at the numbers for you, and
It wasn't easy.
Everybody was pitching in, trying to help the overall cause. One thing we can look at as we go into 2022 is where we're at with the CIP. Any carryover cash in the general. Normally at the end of the year, we'll move it on into the CIP for use if we have funds that we feel are available to do that. So we can look at, the end of the year where we're at, and you can determine whether you want to transfer some funds at that point. Which, the only thing that's gonna cause in 2022 is to amend the budget at the end of the year, which is not an issue because we normally do amend anyway, because we do have some things, either whether it's a capital project, and not that they're required to be budgeted, but we try to budget all funds. And any transfers that may be able to be increased at the end of the year, we make those amendments, so we can do that as well, so.
So at this point in time, in terms of finishing out the rest of the budget, it's just formalities. Going through
Right.
The rest of the public
Yep.
hearings and our new set of public hearings that we have.
Right.
Revenue neutral rate here, guys.
So as long as you're good with these numbers, this is what I'm going to be sending to the accountant. They'll review our budget, just make sure that I haven't overlooked anything. So it's ready to go to the state. I'll bring it back to you as a finalized, in case there's any changes that they see we need to make, let you know one way or the other, and then at that point, it'll be ready for publication. And once we publish it, we have the 10-day wait for the hearing, so we want to have it published by around September 9th, because we have the hearing scheduled for September 20th.
Just refresh my memory, Tammy, about what's the rough period of time with the auditor?
So we have a new person this year, and the one we'd had previously has went to he's opened his own firm. So I would like to say we should have it back within a week, but I gave him 10 days.
Okay.
Just in case, anything came up.
I know the
I don't know
person
how
that's
familiar
taken
he
over
is.
is very familiar still with what's going on. They've worked on this. So
He's the one that works on an audit, and so I just don't know how much experience he has with the budget. So it may take a few extra days and, some discussion that we have if he has questions, but beyond that, we should be in good shape.
Okay.
So,
All right, well, this is the biggest thing we do of the year, and at least for this year, it's all but done. A few formalities, so feel good about that.
all right.
Okay.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, Tammy.
Last time.
You just love us too much, Debbie. That's what it is.
Come back one more time.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Next commissioner, you have John Element up. 9:40. Tim, how you doing? Tired.
What was going on there?
Rest Band-Aid,
Oh, that's right.
easy to get out till after 10 o'clock.
What'd they decide?
Well, they already have one in place. It's September 24th. And then it's just in their open. They had quite a bit of public comment, and then they turned from medical professionals. They all had their comments. 2 hours, that's.
Feels like deja vu, doesn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Last meeting was like 45 minutes. 2 weeks ago.
No, I haven't been out that way. Are you getting hot over here?
No, I've been hot. Not getting.
I'm fine.
She turns the thermostat up, she turns the fan
No, I
off.
don't. I did not.
She's trying to
I have
switch
not
you out of
touched
here.
the
That's what
it is.
thermostat.
I know.
Kind of keep pushing you that direction. And
I know her motive.
Yeah.
Since her club's broken, she's found other methods.
Well,
the club was broken to start with. That was not her fault.
see what I got here. I got a nice ruler here.
In some aspects, that would actually hurt worse than the club. Or is she?
Ready?
Go ahead, John.
Good morning, Commissioner. John Allergan, Public Works Director. I'm here to ask for another position. You signed the sheets for Gilbert Terrell to start at the transfer station. He came out of the road bridge crew. And it's a crew we use quite a bit, especially this time of year. We budgeted position. We'd like to go out and fill it.
Another one of those internal things, huh?
It's good that they get promotion, but for somebody, that's the other part. But no, I moved to approve the public works hire, advertised to hire for the open equipment operator 2 position.
I would second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded on the request to open equipment operators 2 position in Public Works. All those in favor?
All 3, please. Thank you. Thanks, John. Next, Commissioner, you have Elizabeth Ward, 10:45. 9:45, sorry. Skipping ahead.
We got a break.
That's right.
All right. Time to order some breakfast. Catch a
I can handle
Netflix show
that.
up there on the screen, something. Maybe you're on East Coast time today.
Yeah, maybe that's.
I would never.
Should have seen the look I got. there.
Oh,
Ooh, boy. A lot of those good sheets.
Good. I'm missing my shirt.
I would imagine they would pop up. It should.
Sometimes it's like that one time I still did not know where they tried to keep.
It should pop up there. You should see it. Here's one of them. I want to text Julie if you got her number. Okay. Oh, gosh.
Morning.
Here she is, Elizabeth.
Better.
Really?
Morning.
There you go.
Yeah, go ahead, Elizabeth, sorry.
Good morning, Commissioners. Elizabeth Ward, Human Resource Manager. Well, as you're aware, and I know Commissioner Folke mentioned this morning, there are multiple and numerous really local and national organizations moving to require, excuse me, moving to require masks of their employees or customers or some combination. This move is based on the best available guidance from healthcare officials at this time, so what's currently available. So with that, I know you've had a short chance to read the proposal here, but we would like to discuss a policy for Riley County personnel. So I have some background there, nothing that you're not aware of. We had our mask mandate previous to April 29th for the unincorporated areas of Riley County, and that's been lifted and haven't made a change at that point, or since that point. Since that time, your direction was that department heads would have their own discretion to direct their departments as they saw fit regarding multiple practices. So regarding shields, masks, et cetera. And so some departments have enacted varying levels of requirements. Some are requiring masks at all times. Some are requiring masks whenever they interact with clients. Some continue to have their the screens, the plexiglass screens still in place. Notably, EMS and ambulance has implemented, they have a COVID response protocol, which has different degrees. And that's been, they basically had made that plan from the beginning and then moved across those steps. And Josh can correct me if I misspeak, but they're at the second highest level of protection at this point. So they are requiring masks at all times, except when they are alone, only with their full-time partner that they would consider familial, since they live in the same, there at the station. Obviously, since the beginning of July, Riley County, we've experienced a surge in COVID, and particularly concerning is the Delta variant, which we have learned that both vaccinated and unvaccinated people can carry and potentially become ill. I want to be really clear that this policy and all of our discussion today is really focused on personnel and workforce readiness. It is not a meant to be a political or personal or any type of a judgment on whether or not vaccinations or masks are good. What we are trying to think about is how to keep our workforce as safe as possible so that we can provide the services that are core to Riley County for our citizens. Just looking at our numbers, we feel very strongly that if we don't take some protective actions, we may be looking at a situation where a very large number of our employees would not be able to be present to do their job. So I do have both Julie and Josh here, and their information is more relevant and more important than what I have to say as a human resource manager. So I'd like them to come up and speak a little bit about where the medical advice is coming from, which is entirely where we're basing the proposal on.
Morning again. So you already heard my report this morning. The thing that's most concerning to me is not necessarily the number of cases. We expected to see an increase in our number of cases, maybe not so much all at once, but that's not really what's alarming me. It's more the hospital situation. It's the 7 deaths that we've had in the last 2 weeks. That's what's alarming to me. It's our vaccination rates that aren't really improving much, or they're slowly improving, I guess. And I do have Bob Koppel came in this morning, so we're rotating. I'm going to be on next week. He was on this morning and mainly talking about hospital capacity, the situation not only here in Manhattan, but across the state. He followed up with an email to came in looking at the 7-day average for new COVID hospitalizations statewide, and that is up to 65 per day. And he goes on to say, if each of these patients has a multi-day stay, you can see where it would quickly use up a lot of hospital capacity across Kansas. If these patients have a 5-day stay, which is less than typical, by the end of the week, this uses up 325 hospital beds. If the stay is 7 days, this requires 455 hospital beds. And he goes on to say, those patients in the ICU typically have several days there before transferring up to the medical unit. Thus using up more beds in capacity. And he's also looking at resources. So when you look at the staff time that's put in there, there's probably, I imagine, a lot of turnover within the hospitals, just within the healthcare system in general with COVID. So there's a lot of resources being used up, and we're really nervous right now with this going on right now in the summer, because we haven't even hit the fall yet. So our students haven't come back yet. Not all of our students have come back yet for K-State, and our K through 12 have not been put into all one building quite yet. So we're really just kind of nervous going forward with the Delta variant being so transmissible. Whereas one person who's infected with the regular virus could infect 2 to 3 people. With the Delta variant, it's looking at like 6 to 8 people that one person could infect. So, and we're already seeing that happening in our county. So that's where I'm coming from with this. With our numbers the way that they are, that is concerning, but more concerning is the hospital capacity.
Good morning, Josh Gehring, Riley County EMS Assistant Director. I would just want to reiterate kind of what Julie said and what was conveyed by Bob Koppel at the hospital. So in healthcare and in EMS, we are operating at a volume at or busier than we did any time really in the last 18 months. So very briefly in November of 19, and then very briefly in January of 2020, did we hit these numbers that we've operated at the last 2 weeks of July. So the Delta variant is having an impact in our community. And I think we're on the precipice of a bit of an exponential growth curve. And I believe the time for intervention is now.
So just following up with that, and you all, this may be information you already have, but locally, and nationally as well, but K-State, Fort Riley, USD 383 have all implemented mask mandates for anyone on their premise, unless you're alone in a private office or alone in a vehicle. Obviously, Kansas City, you already know, has done that, and the state of Kansas has done it for their employees as well. And there are, I try to keep in touch with the other county governments, city governments. There are multiple public organizations discussing this topic at this point. So I think that's important. Another point to consider is financially, there is no paycheck protection plan, that PPP from the federal government any longer. Many of our employees have exhausted a lot of their ESL and their annual leave from 2020. And so we do have some concern that we would have some people sick, out of work, our workforce reduction, and then also not able to, not have a paycheck. So based on that and the recommendations by Julie, by Josh, by David Adams, and more than 50 healthcare associations and the CDC, we are requesting that Riley County implement a policy requiring people on our premise, our employees to wear a mask at all times, and highly encourage our customers to wear a mask at all times, with the caveat that we would continue to monitor and review on every 2-week basis. When there's not a high transmissible rate, as a CDC would define it, we would then be able to modify that or remove it or modify some change to that. So that is the request on the table. I will say that we did discuss it exhaustively in the department head meeting. So many options. Well, first of all, our team has been discussing this on a weekly basis, since we've learned about the Delta variant, and just trying to see what we best can gather. And then the department heads all had incredible, great input, very engaged. Finally, did decide to support this proposal as it stands, as the best possible scenario at this point.
Elizabeth, this may not be popular, which I'm sure it isn't, but along with that, how many employees, what percentage is vaccinated? And how can we mandate vaccinations for our employees?
I think that's a great discussion to have. So we do not have an accurate count of employees who are vaccinated because we've not gathered that information. We can legally ask for that information. We can collect the information. We can create policy surrounding that. That is all perfectly within an employer's prerogative. We have not done that. So if I just extrapolate Riley County numbers and put them onto our employee base, that's right at the 50% mark. And so we're looking at, we have 278 permanent employees. So potentially up to 50% of those unvaccinated. I feel that that number's high. I think that we have a higher number vaccinated than that. But that is just, my own experience.
Well, and a lot of businesses and even the hospital have mandated vaccination unless there is a medical reason not to, medical exemption, and that's a discussion we ought to have.
For me, it's not.
No.
No, it's a personal choice. It needs to be a personal choice, and I'm sorry, the mask is the same thing. We've gone round and round for the better part of 18 months, and I think in small groups of people, I think masks probably do work fine, but collectively, we're not solving this issue with it. We're just not. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the end game here is, but I feel like these aren't getting us here, and running back in circles and trying to do the same thing over and over again is just, in my opinion, the pure definition of insanity at this point in time. So I'm still okay with department heads doing what they need to do. I understand Josh and the health department. There's some safety protocols that need to be put into place there, and I have no issues with that. But people need to start taking responsibility for the situation that we're in. Government's not going to solve it. These mandates, these regulations aren't going to solve it. We got to take responsibility. I'm not going to mandate vaccinations, but I'm going to highly encourage it because that's what it's going to take to get out of this scenario. But as far as these regulations and mandates, I'm done. I'm done with it. Just done with it.
And may I just say it, I know you obviously you are the representatives of the government. In this particular circumstance, I'm asking you as an employer. And I know that's difficult to separate, but I am suggesting an employment policy, a policy specifically to protect our workforce. And then I would also add, just secondarily, in the department head, I think one of the things that the majority agreed on is that they would like a consistent approach, which is why we're bringing it to you.
It'd be nice to have a consistent approach, but for 18 months, this has been anything but consistent. And I don't see it becoming consistent with that in place anyway. And we're just going to keep circling back around. Like I said, if people want to wear them, I see people coming and going with them. That's perfectly fine. But it's got to be a personal choice at this point in time. And I would highly encourage it. That's perfectly fine. But at this point in time, I'm not mandating any of the regulations. That's just where I'm at.
One of these paragraphs towards the end there, you said something about how many, said we could eventually have upward of 200 employees, 2/3. So 2/3 of the county is coming down with COVID.
Well, again, we don't have that. We don't have the vaccine number, so yeah.
Let me ask this
Again,
question.
200. You're saying 200 out of roughly 300. You know, I'm not sure about the policy. I don't know, but the attitude of this letter was extremely irritating. The screaming, "Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!" Just tell us the facts. Don't exaggerate. We're not going to have 200 people. Yeah, I mean, unless things change right now. You know, 2/3 of the population is not getting COVID, and trying to exaggerate it to make it sound scarier is what's caused a lot of the problems, I think.
Yeah, and that was definitely not our intention.
Well, it's
not
all through this thing. It's overemphasizing. You know, to me, it was pretty irritating, the attitude in this whole write-up. But also, the more you require masks of people who are vaccinated, is that going to keep people from getting vaccinated? And that's my concern, is telling people, oh, even if you get vaccinated, you're still going to wear a mask. Vaccinations are going to disappear.
And I've ran into
which is
this
not
myself.
a problem. We need more
Yeah.
vaccinations.
We just had a vaccination clinic out at Florence. We're thinking about doing a second one to get second shift and second shots. And I got several people to finally commit to vaccination because they wouldn't have to wear these anymore. And now the dynamics just snap of your fingers, quick changing. We haven't had any consistency and continuity throughout this entire process. And a one size fits all policy, again, isn't going to solve that. Just piggybacking off a couple of things there. I know there's a certain amount of our employees that have already had COVID and already gone through it. I also know that, it would also be good to know where our employees are at in terms of total vaccination percentage. Any policy that gets decided on needs to be decided with those facts and not other facts that are included in here currently. And I think that's something that we need to know just in general, regardless of what we decide.
Yeah, we could do that. We did discuss at the beginning of the Delta variant of whether or not we would implement any type of tracking or knowledge or question about vaccinations. We didn't propose it. We didn't know that if that would be something that the commissioners would support. It's not something we can do.
Right.
We need a plan to do it and, you know.
Of the 150 people that are currently active, how many of those are Raleigh County employees?
I don't know that.
Of the 7 deaths, how many of those came and gone directly or indirectly from Raleigh County? That's information when you're
We need
developing
that.
any type of a policy. We need to understand that. And throughout this entire process, we've never really gotten that information. If you're developing a policy, particularly one where you don't really know what the variables are going to be, we need to have as much information as we possibly can. And that's been a struggle throughout. I'm not pointing fingers, I'm not assessing blame to anybody, but that's been a real struggle.
Not just locally, it's
Everywhere.
Yeah,
everywhere.
right.
And do you think we should go ahead and try to get the numbers, have them?
I'm still going to be a no. I still think it's a personal choice and decision at this point in time. And I'm fine with department heads doing what they need to do and mitigating that. They're working in those environments every day, more so than I am. But I'm still going to be a no, but I still would like to have the information anyway. Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying just to clarify, you're saying you would like to collect information about vaccinations from employees?
Yes, and I would like to know what we can do to encourage our employees strongly to get their vaccinations. We can do some things to really encourage it if we know where they are, who they are, what percentage they are. So, we really need the numbers. I need the numbers before I can make a decision.
And that was one of the major
Yeah.
employer discussions about when Delta started, is that one of the policies out there at that point was to collect the information and that everyone's required to wear a mask until you show that you're vaccinated, and then the vaccinated people were not required to wear a mask. That's the policy that employers are also affecting. I'm not suggesting you would or wouldn't, I'm just saying that is, all of these things are realistic options.
Yeah.
Why can't we just live normally and let people make the decision for themselves?
Well, they aren't, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think that's the most sensible option right now. But like I said, I still would like to have numbers.
I understand certain departments, they've got a lot of people coming and going, and I understand their concerns, Does it affect all of the departments? That's why, I was leaning towards this, but I also think leaning back towards the thing that each department, because they know how much contact they have with the public. IT doesn't have public wandering in and out. They don't have and maybe they want it when they go out, they want to.
Public Works and not just we have people actually working outside by themselves independently.
And this was only to cover people
It is to
inside.
be indoors, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the ones that do, particularly Treasurer, that has a lot of people coming in. I understand their concern and would want to do protection, but I'm not
I have
sure.
all the faith and confidence that Shiloh will make the right decision in that particular instance to protect and keep her department safe. That's part of why we have them. I know she's an elected official for a different set of circumstances, but I give power and faith to our department heads to do the right thing in that scenario without having to overhead the entire thing. To me, I go back and forth on whether or not any of this is really working at this point in time. There's plenty of research to suggest both, but the fact we're 18 months into this and don't have a real good conclusion tells me a lot just from a common sense perspective.
Well, this is a pandemic that we've never faced before, so that creates a lot of confusion. We go one way and we have to change courses and go another way. So it's a real fluid situation.
But this is the first time we've faced a pandemic in history.
Yeah.
There's other lessons that could be learned in this process. This is just as much, not just health and medical, as much as it is psychological and sociological too. And all the variables together have produced really not a favorable result at this point.
But the last pandemic, we didn't have antibiotics, we didn't have vaccine for it, none of those things, which we have the science now. And, it's unfortunate that people in the county and all over are not taking advantage of that. When I was a kid, you got your vaccination, no question asked, and it eliminated things like smallpox, polio, and mumps, that kind of thing, but people were.
Well, I think one of the major hangups with the vaccine currently is NASA came along with a new, different type of technology that even somebody who's scientifically compatible hasn't been able to understand, and it's not approved. Believe it or not, that's a huge part of it. the fact that it's just an emergency basis right now, that's a lot of people.
Well, it might be for 10 years. you know.
I don't know either on
You
that,
know, it's,
but that's one of the hangups on this, but
It's a new approach to vaccine, whatever, but it wasn't just started last year. It's been something that's been investigated for years. A different type of vaccine.
I know I've had mine since February and
Yeah.
I haven't noticed anything different. I'm not growing extra appendages, or I even let somebody scan my arm to see if that showed up on there and it didn't. So
I lost my hair.
I was going to use that as a juice too, but there's plenty of pictures beforehand, so I can't play that one off. So,
well, eyes and stuff too. So it's, I would like to hear from the department heads, see what, if you all have opinions and ideas. There's one.
Well, you asked for department heads and to run there. It was a very good discussion for about 45 minutes. Very robust discussion. The department heads have given you a recommendation. It was 9-3. The department heads suggested this. So you're asking for direction from department heads. They have made it collectively. A big discussion was it would be beneficial for some consistency because as we gone through the first round, when things were varying from one department to another, commissioners would get comments about, well, why isn't this staff and this staff member wearing a mask and this one is and such and such. And so that's why they preferred some consistency. There are ways to incentivize people. I sent Elizabeth and Julie a federal program. They're looking at, and it's not just for employees. I think it's just for the general public, $100 incentive. Russell had a good idea yesterday. If the commission's serious about it, give a allotted amount of time off for a county employee that gets a vaccination. So there are some things that can be discussed and settled if we do believe, and the whole reason why myself went along with the recommendation is because it's from the people that I sit on a committee on and Clancy does in the board, and hiring them for their professional opinion. That is the health department director. That is David Adams. Didn't hire Josh, but Josh has been sitting in for David Adams and to take the best information they have. I don't have the time to go and study. If you ask me just to vote on if I wanted a mask, I'll vote no. I hate the mask. But it's because I do believe Josh and Julie, don't we have a potential case that was maybe directly related to a county facility? So to answer your question, we do know of at least one within the last week. So we had every bit of dialogue all of you have just discussed. It was for 45 minutes and we finally just decided to bring something to the board so we can discuss it because there's more and more concern. What really got my attention was the information that Josh gave us. It's as bad as they've seen in 18 months. I don't think any of it. Did you guys realize that? I didn't realize that.
I've been paying attention to it.
Paying attention, but did you realize it's been as bad as it has been in 18 months? I didn't realize that.
I look back at the numbers of where we were at in September, or this time in August of last year, we had almost 500 cases. Currently, we have 150. I know severities is a different discussion at this point in time, but
and that was the
it's
other
still
thing
the
that Josh
difference
pointed
with
out.
that from last year to this year and 18 months ago is we do have something in place to solve it. I'm fine with trying to work through some incentives and stuff to get the people through this process. That's fine, but regulations, mandates, all that isn't going to solve it. It's just not going to get us there.
Well, and you understand we're just talking about for our staff. We're not talking about for the entire county. So I think you have to keep that in perspective.
Fair enough.
Elizabeth says, we're just talking about protecting our workforce and those that come in contact with our workforce. And so I think you have to be sure and separate. We're not talking about countywide policy. We're talking about just the county as an entity with their employees, a policy. And so I think you have to make that distinguishing difference as well, like other public entities and frankly, private entities are making.
Because we're on this, and I think you mentioned, we're not acting necessarily as county commissioners, we're acting as the employers.
Well, but which is county commissioners. I mean, that is.
Well, but I'm just saying, we're not looking at the health county, we're trying to look what's best here. And
the thing is when you have your professional hired people making these recommendations to the public weekly, maybe more than weekly, and then you don't even follow what they're saying and recommending. That's what we hired them for. And so.
Well, in this particular instance, it also won't be the first time that that's been the case either.
No, it won't.
Right. That's the challenge here. I still believe in individual choice and individual responsibility on this.
And there was also discussion, and because we hear it all the time, is why penalize those with requiring all of us to wear masks, those that have gotten vaccinated? That was discussed as well.
Yeah.
But others feel free to speak up, just sometimes others are kind of shy about speaking up, and I tend to not have that problem, so I just kind of try to surmise.
I'm not
We've got two people not shy.
Okay, yeah, you're back there.
So I got the vaccine so I could go on a trip. If I wasn't going on the trip, I wouldn't have got the vaccine. And the reason for that is because it is brand new and it's scary and people have died from it and people have gotten sick from it and there's still studies. And that is okay for me not to want to get the vaccine. It should be my choice. Now, once I become more comfortable with it, I probably would have gotten it. I don't have a problem that I did get it. I haven't been sick or anything like that. But one of the benefits of getting the vaccine is I don't have to wear a mask. I'm not a child. I'm your employee. I come here every day. I work hard for the county. I love my job. I love what you all do for us. But if the regular public can come in and it's just a recommendation for them to wear one, they can still expose me from what all the testing, what all the news says and all those kinds of things. So me wearing a mask, being around them where they can come freely, they could sneeze in the hallway and go into an elevator and then I walk to go to the bathroom and it gets in my face. I mean, I could get it going to Walmart. I could get it putting gas in my car. I mean, we're not children. You know, we know what the risks are. And we would like to, at least I know in my office talking to my coworkers, we would like to be able to decide for ourselves if we want to put a mask on our face or not. I'll tell you, back behind, no one comes into our back office at Community Corrections. It's just us. I have chosen, because I'm going on my trip, I have chosen to wear a mask while I meet with my clients because I'm taking that extra thing because that's what I want to do. So I am wearing a mask when I meet with my clients, but when I come back into our private, I take it off because they're horrible to breathe in everything. Having to wear a mask 24/7 to do my job is miserable. It's absolutely miserable, and I don't think it's fair. And unfortunately, like you said, we've been doing this for 18 months. 18 months of going through this, of working from home, to not going anywhere, not going to the movies, seeing our businesses closed down because they can't be supported anymore. This has been horrible. This is going to keep going. Are we going to wear a mask for 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, 3 years? I mean, how long are we going to have to do this? I mean, there has to become a point in time when we keep going on with our lives and everybody decides what they're going to do. My husband is not vaccinated and he's not going to be vaccinated. We've talked about if he were to get sick from it, he would die. And he still chooses not to get vaccinated because it's his choice. Now, if he dies, it's going to be horrible and awful, and I don't want him to die. But again, I respect his decision not to get it. Please don't treat us like children. We're adults. We work very hard for you. Please let us decide if we want to wear a mask or not.
And that said, I think each department has different interactions, as you mentioned. Ambulance, 100%. You're in people's faces, everybody's capacity in which they work with the general public, whether we run the question or not of who's all vaccinated here within the county, the general public walking in and out, we can't ask. And we have, within our department, taken measures to protect each of us. We trust our director, who has shown us time and time again, will make those choices, whether we like it or not, that will protect us. And we follow those choices that she's put in place for us, because as you said, that's why she's hired, that's why she's there. And she was one of the three, so it wasn't a unanimous department head vote. It was, they came to an overall consensus, but it wasn't unanimous. Joanna and I sit this close all the time. We are vaccinated. And I don't know why behind locked doors, vaccinated, feeling safe, we should have to be exposed to that mandate. I got vaccinated and my family got vaccinated so that we can move forward, so that we can come back to work. Mask or no mask, but so we can resume some sort of normalcy. That's what my family can do right now to help push us forward. That's a choice we've made. Completely support people, whether they want to or not. If I wasn't an employee, probably wouldn't have gotten vaccinated just yet. Certainly wouldn't have gotten my 12-year-old vaccinated had I known USC 383 was going to put a mask mandate in, because I think there's more to learn. Polio didn't get solved in 18 months. Chickenpox didn't get solved in 18 months. There's more to learn.
Yeah, those vaccinations were studied for a long period of time. This one has not.
That said, I trusted, I'm in it. They know more than I do. I got vaccinated.
I did become superwoman after I got it, and unfortunately, I was hoping for it. But I just asked you. I'd like to have other county employees say too, because this is our lives, and I just think if the outside public too can come in and it's up to them whether or not they wear the mask, then it should be for all of us.
And we have to trust our leaders. We have to trust our department heads.
Gotcha.
So as one of the offices that has a large number of customers, I did present this to the staff yesterday that this was coming up. I didn't want them to be blindsided. I did vote along with the majority of the department heads because I do feel that in my department, the majority of my staff is vaccinated. I will say not 100% is, and that is a concern to the other employees. And if we weren't saying vaccinated, unvaccinated, we were just saying in public spaces. And so for me, if we were gonna make my front counter all wear masks, then I felt we needed to do it across the board, because I know there's some that are not vaccinated are sitting in close proximity with those who are. And so they would feel safe. I voted to do an all or nothing. However, that being said, if I gave it up to my employees to use your own personal preference, I guarantee you that they all feel the exact same way you do, that they've been vaccinated, they have the plexiglass, we've managed to keep the desks or the chairs further out. We're controlling the number of people that we allow to wait in the office. We're sanitizing, we're micromanning, we're washing the pens. They feel like they're doing everything that they were supposed to do to do their part. And there's some animosity that they're being punished for going that far. But once again, I trust the experts and I trust what they're saying, and I would not want to have to close because the one vaccinated person infected, the 6 or 7 that were at break with them or whatever.
But in your particular scenario, everybody could wear a mask and somebody could be sick anyway and still pass it through. It's not a perfect scenario.
Sure. Oh, I agree,
Right.
100%.
So
That being said, I just think when you leave it up to your own personal preference, then that's where we're
well,
going.
in this case, I'm leaving it to department heads, but everything that we do in Riley County isn't consistent across the board in how we create and do and provide services either. Some of them are a little bit more necessary. Some of them may not necessarily be so necessary. A one-size-fits-all policy still doesn't necessarily work across those broad lines.
Sure. And Shiloh, I would present to you, and this sounds kind of harsh and morbid, but just as I had the choice to get vaccinated, people have the choice to not get vaccinated.
Oh, sure.
The risks are out there. We've heard Julie say every press conference, the people in the hospital are unvaccinated. The people that are in ICU are unvaccinated. If they're choosing not to, then I can't be concerned about being this close to you because you might not be vaccinated, because I am. I know that I've done my part.
And my husband, we've had many conversations about him being unvaccinated, the places that we go, the things that we do. And he is fully prepared for whatever comes.
Well, and there's people like that. I've got a friend from high school that got it very early, late March, early April. He spent 52 days in the hospital, had an emergency tracheotomy. He almost died. He's made it clear, I'm not getting a vaccination. I'll get it again and die. I don't care. I don't know how you force that upon somebody with that particular mindset at this point in time, but That's a fact.
And if those people have a medical reason for not getting a vaccination, they're taking extra precautions. If there's a reason I can't physically get a vaccination, everyone I know who has chosen not to because of a medical reason, they're taking precautions to protect themselves. If I'm unvaccinated because I don't want to be vaccinated, then I'm going to come to work and be like, but you should wear a mask because I'm not vaccinated. That's not Joanna's choice. That was my choice.
And I will say, the thought of being vaccinated and then having to put a mask on, if I wasn't vaccinated and hearing that I had to put a mask back on, I'd be like, well, then why should I get the vaccination?
Yeah.
I just think it is a deterrent.
I would rather try to incentivize to get our numbers up than to go this route.
Prorated. Prorated.
That's a discussion to be had later.
You'll have a whole nother group in.
Yeah. Like I said, none of this has been perfect and I don't expect it to be moving forward.
Russell, let's make Russell add something.
So I was one of them that voted, one of the department heads voted, and said, my main reasons for voting is so were, in my department in particular, we have 2 back offices, 2 people in each office, they're 12 feet apart. This would make them wear a mask all day long. And then, I don't disagree with the departments speaking to the public, and if you have those interactions, absolutely, they probably should wear a mask. But I think it also, as others have said, this would de-incentivize people, and there's nothing in this to incentivize county employees to get vaccinated.
And I will say, when the CDC guidance came out a couple weeks ago, I was devastated because I thought my whole goal is to get more people vaccinated. And when this came out, I don't want to be wearing a mask. But when that guidance came out, I thought, oh gosh, what are we going to do? I think a lot of it is that we are learning so much as we go. And with the Delta variant, I really feel like it's a whole new ballgame. I think that that's just going to spread. It is going to be more dominant, the most dominant one in the county. And I think we're still learning about it. So yeah, I don't necessarily want to wear a mask either, but I have to take into consideration the CDC guidance and what we don't know still.
So how is this really different from flu? Flu's very contagious. I mean, people die from flu. There's large numbers of people who die from flu. We've been dealing with it for many, many years. People don't wear masks for that. They choose whether they're going to get vaccinated for the flu. And when that flu variant vaccine comes out, it may target the ones that are prominent that year, or they may not. So, I mean, I just don't understand how this can be so different from the flu.
I think you have to look at the numbers and how quickly it's coming. I just mentioned in the last 2 weeks, we had 7 deaths and our hospital is hurting. What we're seeing at EMS, it's devastating.
But can you explain those 7 deaths? I mean, you look at that, you see 7 deaths, but it wasn't healthy working population necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Right.
Josh,
So
can you talk about the profile? You mentioned to us in the department head, they told you profile
I think,
previously.
I can speak some, I think. I think that like the comparison of flu is a common one, and I think it's an important one, actually, because I think like Kenny alluded to, it's something that we've dealt with for years. It's something that always, on an annual basis, presents challenges in healthcare, right? Like every October 1 to March 1, we start to hit some of those capacity limits again with the flu. So I think it's pretty instructive, in my mind, at least as a healthcare provider, to look at some of the differences between our mitigation approaches to the flu and to COVID. And the ones that are most, most instructive in my mind are, for the flu, we do have vaccines currently available for a much younger age, right? We don't have that yet for COVID. And for the flu, we do have prescription antivirals that you can take at home that are very effective at keeping you out of the hospital. So I think maybe that's why masks are such a thing with COVID and not such a thing with flu, because we have some other tools in our pocket to fight the flu that we don't yet have for COVID. So I'm not really advocating one or the other. I'm saying like that is the reality of the situation in healthcare.
but we have a vaccine for COVID though too, even though it doesn't go young.
Correct.
I mean,
Yeah.
the mitigation process to me is kind of still the same. I'm not trying to argue that. I'm just, but I do think putting everybody back in these regulations, these mandates again is going to deter. And I think that's the direction that we've got to work towards. And doing that isn't going to help us. It's just not.
Just for Josh, kind of teeing off what Julie said about it being a little bit different. You talked at the staff level at one point about the demographic difference in the people that you're transporting right now between the people that were transported all last year.
Yeah, and I think, so we've noticed, somewhat anecdotally, right? I don't have the evidence to support this, so I want to qualify that, but anecdotely, it seems to me that the people who found themselves in ambulances during previous iterations of COVID were older and living in congregate living environments, and that seems to be shifting now. It seems to be younger, unvaccinated individuals who are not necessarily in nursing homes or in congregate living environments.
But were a majority of these last rounds of death in that environment? Or no?
I don't know. I don't answer.
Well, the press release seemed to insinuate that all but one of them were from one specific place, and that was congregate setting.
Yeah, that's true.
Some things have changed, but maybe some things haven't too.
But even when you're looking at the flu again, there are thousands and thousands of deaths every year with the flu. And they're not capitalized on anymore because it's been around so long, and we just know that's part of it. So while there may still be less deaths, and there still are some things out there that can help mitigate the effects of flu, it's still very similar. It's just, like you said, it's unknown. But again, it's a person's prerogative whether they get that vaccine each year and whether they take the risk of possibly dying or not. And to me, it just seems like it's the same thing. And it's just like Commissioner McKinley said, everybody is throwing this so far out of context and everybody's so scared that that's what's creating this pandemic.
Sociology.
So that sounds like a good place for me to jump in. Just one point of clarification. With the number 200, I do want to clarify that we actually have over 500 employees when I include the volunteer firefighters and the election workers who at this point would be part of our concern. And so the 200 is based on that number. So there's 150 volunteer firefighters, 30, okay.
Right.
And about,
depends on the day.
I think I actually have 114.
That
So,
happens
we
with
got,
election workers too, depending on.
but yeah, it's about the same number of election workers. And so that number, that 200, I'm sorry, I couldn't find it at the time you brought it up, but that number is just extrapolating up the percentages from the community. Again, I think the majority of our employees probably have a higher vaccination rate than the whole population, but that's the number that we had at that point. It was definitely not intended to be inflammatory or exaggerating. It's actually would be less than the 50% mark at that number. So. And I guess, is there any other?
Yeah, we're
motion, close, whatever.
I'm a strong no on this, but I would like to have the appropriate data moving forward for this and other purposes.
We
But
need more specific
clarify what that
clarification
is.
than that, and a vote on what exactly the commissioners want.
I'm saying no. That's what I'm saying.
No, I'm talking on the data.
Yeah, the data, yeah.
If you're gonna,
I want to know the percentage of employees from Riley County that are vaccinated, and if possible, ones that have already had it, or a combination of the two.
okay.
Already had COVID? Yes.
I need there needs to be at least two that want that information.
Well, I'm just saying it. Can I finish? And then, okay.
Good.
Okay. We need those two data points for sure. And whatever else everybody else wants.
No, that's what that's what I was looking for too. The numbers you're talking about. I'd like to see those numbers too.
Yeah, I would too. I would like to see the numbers on that. So.
But then percent of employees who have had COVID might be a little more difficult to find because that's just going based on what our contact tracers do find out from them.
And that's fine, but at least give us something more than I don't know on that.
Yeah, vaccinated, unvaccinated, and possibly.
Right.
And I just want to caveat, I know we can get the percent of employees who have been vaccinated. I am not sure what the law says as far as asking people about their COVID. There are some things surrounding health So I will research it. If we can use data from the contact tracers, great, because, that they've gathered that and they just have numbers and associated names. If we're going to go out to the employees and ask, I need to make sure we can legally do that, but I will work on that.
But you can't, for vaccinations, you
You
can't.
can, yeah, there's specific guidance.
Okay, I mean, I know, like I say, I know there's the HEPA rules about what you can and
Right.
can't. We don't want to
Right.
get in trouble with those, I understand.
Right, and I do need to put a plan in place to do that and to safely, to keep
Right.
that information confidential, so I will not be able to bring this to you by Monday, by any
Right.
means. But we could have a plan in place to go about it by Monday and then start gathering.
So at this point, we would still be, it's up to the department head's prerogative for each of their departments.
And I was gonna make a motion that we just go ahead and leave the current policy and COVID mitigation manners in place.
If that is the motion, just to make sure, we also currently allow anything COVID related as far as a leave request immediately goes into ESL. That is also part of, so if you say to leave it as is, that would be included.
Yep.
Okay.
Same policy that's been in place since April 30th or whatever it was.
So that was a motion.
That was a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to keep the current Riley County COVID-19 personnel policy in place. All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you. Thank you.
You.
We may be over, but we need this discussion.
It was coming.
Yeah, yeah, it's gotta keep with us.
And probably not a.
It's not over.
That's a pretty safe bet.
Ron's here, John, if you want to.
I was gonna do Ron first, and then we'll go back to Amanda and Ron, or Clancy afterwards, since you guys are already here and.
You have to speak here.
No, I'm gonna let you have
First come,
first.
first served.
Yeah.
Good morning.
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 Thanks for.
If you haven't had this conversation yet, this will be a prelude.
I didn't pick up on all of it, but yeah, that's having similar discussions, I'm sure. Just thought I'd update you on some things that, a few things that have happened and things that we're anticipating to happen. So in July, the City Commission approved the recommended selection of Development Strategies Company. They're a company out of St. Louis that to perform the housing market analysis and housing study for the community, and that anticipate that to be about a year-long event. There were 8 different companies that had submitted for that. 3 of them were interviewed. This group has some good experience in Kansas and the surrounding area, and so we felt like they were a good mix. Their contract will be on the next City Commission meeting on the 17th of August, as well as their recommendation for developing that steering committee that will guide that. And so anticipate a process whereby different stakeholder groups and community groups will submit interest to be on that steering committee, and then ultimately the City Commission will appoint that steering committee. Also on that 8/17 meeting, there will be a commission will do one last kind of work session on the Manhattan Development Code. So that's our subdivision and zoning regulations that we're consolidating into a single regulation. And so we've spent quite a bit of time doing with that, engaging folks in the community. And this will be kind of the last work session on before it starts that formal review process that goes to the planning board and back to the commission for formal adoption later this fall.
We're pretty robust with that. You got that done pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, we put it on hold for a long time last year.
Well, yeah.
Once we read.
We'll put an asterisk next to it, but yeah.
Everything has a 2021 COVID asterisk next to it, unfortunately. Also that evening, we have a public hearing to consider forming a benefit district to finance some roadway improvements out along US 24 Tucker Boulevard and north entrance to Blue Hills Shopping Center. So Metal is in the process of developing some medical office buildings. You can buy there. It's least one of the buildings is pretty well complete, and I think that's the first one, the only one they plan to build in this phase. But if you've used the access off of Tulsa Boulevard to what was the shopping center, I wouldn't call it much of an access.
Half paved, half gravel.
Yeah, lots of holes. That's always been a contention, I think, amongst the various owners about who should own and maintain that roadway. And so there's actually one benefit district, but two different projects. So KDOT, as part of our zoning, looking at the number of traffic that might be entering that, is requiring Metal Arc to increase the turning lane distance for that northbound left-hand turn into that. So, and they're going to participate in that improvement. And so there might also be some improvements on the southbound right-hand turn lane, much like the current Metal Arc entrance. If you just go a little bit further to the north, that intersection is improved. It has another leg to it, but similar type of improvements to meet the KDOT standards. So the funding partners in that are KDOT, the city, and Metal Arc. Then the frontage road, that's always been an issue, is what really the public hearing's about, is because we couldn't get a petition. There's about 4 owners that are involved in that, Metal Arc being one, the dollar store being another, the shopping center owner itself, and then Darris that has the convenience store on the 4 owners of that. So not having a valid petition from amongst those owners, we're having a public hearing to determine the percentage splits between each of the participation to improve that benefit, because everybody's going to benefit from that, improving that access to that corridor. So we'll see how that goes, and hopefully that will get resolved. Further, that's going to be a busy commission meeting tonight, because also that night the commission will entertain a recommendation from the selection committee for a development proposal for the Laramie and 12th Street parking lot in Aggieville. So we had only one submittal. It was a local development submittal, and proposing about a $40 million mixed-use facility on that parking lot. So that would be very beneficial to the tax increment financing district, obviously.
You're going to wait till the parking garage is done before doing that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to
Most definitely. I'll give you a little update on that when I get to construction. So still a lot going on in that aspect of things. Some other upcoming items on commission agendas will be a work session on August 24th, reviewing the 60% design for the replacement runway at the airport. So that's a project that we've also submitted a grant request through the Defense Communities Partnership Program, Community Partners Program. We feel pretty good about our opportunities there. And the goal there is to try and get about $6 million to pay for the additional, to put the runway back the way it is. The FAA said they'd only fund a 100-foot wide new runway, and our current runway is 150 feet. So if we didn't do the rest of it, we would limit the capability of Fort Riley to be able to transport equipment and troops out of that, as well as other sports charters and other things. So it's critical that we build it back 150. We're looking for different avenues to help fund that gap, and we think this is have a good opportunity to do that. Anyway, an update on that particular design. That's a construction project that would, if everything goes right, would likely occur middle of next year, maybe later than that, maybe not even until 23. So we still don't know quite what that time frame is going to be from getting a grant from the FAA to start the project. Some construction updates. We go back to schedule. So in September 14th, we're looking at a work session to really take a new overlook of some of the schedules in Aggieville. So, you know, we've done some of the streetscape improvements on North 12th Street there in front of the hotel, which is, if you haven't been by there, we've completed the work there with the streetscaping and curb and gutter. So the hotel, I think, plans to open up later this month. And so that's starting to look good in that particular area. And then we have a lot more improvements to do in Aggieville from a streetscape perspective. There's a lot of old infrastructure in Aggieville with water and sewer lines. So we're going to replace there's undersized water lines. So we're going to bring everything up to standards as we start tearing different sections of the streets up for full replacement, as well as the sidewalks, and replace all of those individual service lines and meters and connections to sewer. So there's going to be a lot of business disruption. We did that downtown here when we redid the downtown streetscape. Although the infrastructure is older in Aggieville, believe it or not, from a upgrade perspective. So there's a lot of work to be done there. And when you start digging in that old of dirt, you find a lot of other things, old coal shafts and things that isn't on your nice GIS system that says there's something there. So anyway, more to come to just look at timing and sequencing of all of those different particular projects. Some construction updates. Mentioned the garage. If you haven't been by there, certainly it looks like the shell is done and pretty much the box of the unit is done. Now there's a lot of interior work. We're anticipating probably around an April completion date for everything to be done and open. So from that standpoint, Laramie Street's pretty much been poured up to the 14th Street intersection. We were able to get that back open and get the utilities replaced under there, at least partially. And then if you've been by there lately, you've seen new traffic signals coming up at that intersection. So that will be there another month or two before that all gets opened back up. And then late September, we plan to move down to the Anderson intersection at 14th. We're going to upgrade the signals there as well. So there'll be some, don't plan to close that intersection. Obviously, that's not something we want to do during the school year, but it will be limited at certain times when we upgrade some of the signals and change them out. Let's see, 3rd Street down here, we had a little surprise, had a storm sewer collapse, and that was the culprit. So we've had some voids underneath the pavement where that occurred, and so we had to extract that, got the storm sewer repaired, and that should be back open by Monday. I know I think they're probably pouring the last concrete today. Kimball Avenue, the Candlewood project's the big section there where we're having disruption. So we're working on the westbound lanes, the extension of we added 2 more storm sewer pipes that go under through Seco. Those have been installed. The concrete ditch on the north side is all getting replaced with underground storm sewer, and then a new entrance to Candlewood to the shopping center, a 3/4 entrance there, will be constructed. So we're looking probably sometime around the end of September, first part of October, before that is all wrapped up and back open again. But,
yeah, I saw
it's going well.
They've got all the precast laid out.
Yeah,
that's going to be good.
And you can kind of see some of the things from the first phase where some of the turning lanes and that sort of thing.
You need a bit of rain to get that grass to grow over there on the hill.
Yeah, definitely. Plymouth and Little Kid Creek, we're going to be doing some temporary closures there on Kimball. We're doing some street repair work, plus putting in some new stormwater, upgrading some of our storm sewer system in those areas along Kimball. And then KDOT has given us the approval to proceed with bidding one of the next phases of North Campus Corridor. That would be the section between Denison and North Manhattan. We're looking at closing that section completely for this construction, and it'll be about a 1-year closure. The goal is to get it open before the football season next year. That's why the emphasis was done on getting all the North Manhattan improvements done, getting Marlatt and Denison done, and the College and Kimball intersection all done for detour routes. So we've got about a $5 million grant from KDOT to help with that particular phase. And so we anticipate that will go to bid here very soon, and looking at probably some kind of closure in mid to late October. So we'll get through part of the football season with it open. The other phase of Kimball that is planned to be bid this year, but probably won't have an impact to traffic on Kimball till middle of next year, would be that next phase. So where the current phase left off at the west parking lot entrance to the football stadium, all the way down to Rowing, past Green Science, new intersection at the Green Science complex entrance. That'll be a signalized entrance, more widening, more turning lanes. The piece that's part of that would get under construction, there's a back frontage road that'll connect to College Avenue north of Kimball and run behind And that's going to allow us to get rid of all of those driveways along Kimball, except at that intersection. So that helps create some of the safety of stop and go, plus the turn lanes on Kimball, new turn lanes on Kimball will help with that as well. So that may get under construction, which wouldn't really disrupt traffic on Kimball. Let's see. Have a few other just local streets. Kings Road area is about 50% complete on our street maintenance program. Anticipate some work in the Stag Hill area up on Allison and Dehoff through October, November with our regular street maintenance program. And also the word we got from KDOT on Fort Riley Boulevard is the bridge replacements, as they're looking at mid-November now to complete the bridges.
I drove out there last night and that surprised me. They already had the decking and stuff down, and I thought summer didn't seem too long to me at this point in time, unless something happens with the weather, obviously, but that's good news.
Yeah.
It's really, really good news.
That will help tremendously. And then you've probably seen some crews that our utility crews around the city, they're kind of in that Aggieville area right now, and that's our sanitary sewer lining contract. So we're relining some of the older sanitary sewer lines, so you get some of the old clay pipes that roots impact and you get cracks in them, so you get groundwater infiltration into our sanitary sewer system. This is the lining process that basically I like to call it a sock. So it's a fiberglass component that you force down into the sewer line after you do some cammering to make sure it's all clean and ready for it, and then you put hot water down it, and it forms a new fiberglass pipe inside the existing pipe, and it becomes actually more effective than it was when it was original. So it's and you don't have to dig everything up to do it. You just access it through manholes. So that's that contract that's working, and we've been doing that now for about the last 20 years.
Just finishing up the one at Riley, the city of Riley just did a major one through most of the city.
It's great to see that technology work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's all I have. Happy to answer any questions. I know you're behind schedule, so.
Anything, anybody? Got a lot of stuff going on. We
Yeah.
do, yeah.
All right. And thanks for all your work on the elections. I know it's a lot of work, so I appreciate that, and dealing with the revenue neutral rate and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Let me know when you're wanting to take elections over.
okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you. Okay, we'll jump backwards now and okay.
I'll be back in a minute.
Okay, guess we'll wait. Got Amanda first. Oh, if you want to go ahead, Amanda, go ahead. We don't have to vote on anything on that.
So I didn't have to follow the COVID discussion.
Directly, anyway.
Can we add some planning and development there, maybe?
Right.
So planning and development charge COVID?
Right.
You know, as we've all said, it's just such an unknown. So.
Giant petri dish, I call it.
Used to like petri dishes. I guess not anymore.
Okay, Amanda Speller, Planning Director. Good morning. Just here to provide my monthly update for you folks. Just going to hit some of the highlights, because again, I know we're a little behind schedule here, but as always, happy to answer any questions or do any research as you might need. So I'm going to jump around a little bit. So our land development regulations, obviously one of our biggest projects that we're working on now. Bob and I have come up with a tentative
public review and adoption schedule. Our goal is going to happen, we are getting this done by the end of the year. Where, as with so many things, we've just been a little bit more delayed than we had hoped to. Things have just taken a little bit longer. Just happens, just kind of the way it is. But we're getting there. Stantec, our consultant, is finalizing our conversion into InDesign, so it looks, nice and crisp for the public and then for our website. So we're working through that, and once we're done with that, again, we'll be able to move into our actual public review and adoption schedule. We are anticipating work sessions with both planning boards in September. Work session with you folks late September, early October, somewhere in there. And then public hearings with both planning boards in late October, early November, with the hope that we can honestly adopt this before Thanksgiving, but if not, we'll do it in December. So again, we'll be talking a little bit more about that as we move forward. Our intention is to get a draft on our website here in September, probably when we're doing the work session, so people can certainly take a look at that, making sure people are aware this is just a draft. Nothing has been adopted at this point. There's still time for questions, comments, things like that. So we'll just kind of see how things go, because of course there's we always want to answer or research any questions or comments people do have, because really at the end of the day this is for for the public, obviously making sure that everybody's as comfortable with it as possible, even though it's not one of those fun things that everybody loves. So let's see, NG 911, we will have a public hearing with you folks at the end of August for Johnson Trail. This is the currently unnamed private road off of Johnson Road. We are proposing Johnson Trail. We have sent them their letters with that proposed name and with the proposed addressing. We didn't receive any comments or petitions for alternate road names. So as far as we know, nobody's really too concerned about that. It's my understanding this particular roadway was one of concern of EMS and even of some of the property owners. So I think probably there's a little bit of relief there that we're getting that one done.
And when is that coming to us again?
I believe it's scheduled for August 26th.
Okay.
Public hearing. Yep. Let's see. So Keats, the saga that is Keats. So we received some unfortunate news through our income survey. We were very close, but with CDBG, it's either all or nothing. We did not make the required mid-income percent threshold. So we are not, the Keats project is not eligible for CDBG funding. The income survey results showed we are only eligible, and the project is only eligible for 45% USDA funding. We had hoped to get it up to 75%, but we didn't make it. We didn't get those household income rates that we needed for that. But we are at least still eligible for the 45%. We're still looking into, of course, the KDHE revolving loan fund. There's a potential for up to 30% loan forgiveness, but that's a big number. And so we don't know if that's going to be possible. The committee will meet tomorrow. We'll talk about this tomorrow. The committee is consistent of mostly staff and our consultant, Sam Johnson. So we're just gonna kind of open it back up for discussion. How do we want to proceed? What do we want to do? Do we want to look at other options that maybe we've talked about before? Do we want to bring them up again? How do we want to do this? Because unfortunately, what this means is it's going to be a higher number for property owners.
What's going to end up happening is there's going to be property owners that can't live in their house.
Right.
That's the worst case scenario.
So there's definitely a lot more discussion that we need to have. Sam was going to place a call to Austin Masters of USDA this week, so hopefully we'll get an update from Sam tomorrow about how that discussion went. Because as you folks might recall, USDA isn't excited to fund a project at such a high rate to the users. So, and we had hoped to get that number lower with again, the CDBG funding and, the income survey and everything we've been doing, but without that funding, that number did not get lower. Sam is also kind of crunching some numbers now that we don't have that funding. What does that actually mean? Let's get some facts and, see what that's actually going to mean for the project. So again, so we'll have that conversation tomorrow. We will be back before you folks, probably Sam and some other members of the committee within the next couple of weeks to give you folks much more information. And probably from there, you know, kind of, obviously you've already given your direction and what option we were looking at, but now we have some new information, so we're probably going to want to have that renewed conversation with that new information with you folks and you know, ask for, you know, if it's going to be new direction or you know what you folks want to do with that once we have all of the information that we can present to you. So that's kind of where we are with that. So again, disappointing news this week that we got for that, but that's where we are. So in some good news, we are wrapping up our CDBG and CV grant with the state. Again, we were able to help one additional business and then give a little bit more money to the 9 that we'd already assisted. And then we also were able to get 2 nonprofits that we helped through the meals program as well. We will tell you right now, it's very hard to give money away. You wouldn't think so, but it's very hard to give money away.
This is just very detailed and specific on this one, and it's just hard to meet the requirements.
It's fairly detailed.
Yeah.
We had one, you know, agency we were trying to help through the meals program. And, you know, in the grand scheme of things, for the meals program, there's not a ton that they ask for. You know, obviously we need invoices and receipts. They need to know what we're paying for. Fair enough, of course. And we just had one entity that wasn't able to get that information, I guess, from one of the cafes out in Riley or whatnot. They don't do receipts, they don't do that information, and then they just kind of didn't want to do it, unfortunately. So we weren't able to give them several $1,000s. So yeah, and apparently, so we met with one of the gals from the state earlier this week who's working on our closeout, and she says that's actually pretty common.
Yeah,
finding that, unfortunately. So so we will be giving some money back to the state. Again, unfortunately, we did everything we could to give out as much as possible. We did give out quite a chunk, so we are very happy about that. They are talking about doing a 4th round, doing a 4th grant, and anybody who had previously been awarded the CDBG grant could be eligible again. It's going to be a little bit before they do it. So we might want to think about that again. It was a lot of work for staff, but that's fine. I don't have a problem doing all the work if we're able to help people. You know, so we'll definitely have to you know, think about that again if we want to try again. They're talking about doing again. It's all kind of, you know, to be determined how they're going to do it, but they're talking about maybe you know, having folks you know, provide that input to us. You know, yes, we would love to get some help. Here's what we do, blah blah blah. Rather than, you know, let's just apply for it and then nobody takes a supplement. So more to come, but at least we have helped as many as we could and gave a little bit more money to some of the businesses we've already assisted. So let's see, what else should we talk about? We were awarded our KDHE solid waste grant for our battery recycling educational program. So we were really pleased about that. It's about $2,000. If you folks recall, our intention is to do stickers, flyers, you know, stickers that people can affix to their waste bin, saying, here's what you can do with your bags. Don't just throw them away in this trash can. Here's what you can do with them. Flyers, you know, being present at various community events. Just again, just all about education and, you know, getting the word out about what you can really do with your batteries rather than just throw it in the trash. So more to come with that, but at least that was some good news that we were awarded that grant. So. And I know I said it'd be brief. I feel like I've been talking forever, but let's see. I just want to make sure to hit a couple more things here. So we have some exciting things with personnel here this month. Darren Hobbs will be joining us on the 23rd. We have stolen him from the appraiser's office, but Greg and I, we have no hard feelings. We've talked. It's fine.
At least you don't.
He said he didn't. He wrote me a very nice email. But no, we're very excited that Darren is going to be joining our team. And again, he's already obviously very well familiar with the county. So it's going to be a great fit. You know, and he and Steve are going to hit the ground running. They're going to go to the state floodplain management conference in the beginning of September. So we'll get him going here pretty quick. So we're excited for that. Another thing we're excited for, Lindsay Mason, she is a current K-State grad student. She just finished her internship with the health department. She's going to be our intern for the fall semester. So we're excited for that. So she's going to help pairing some environmental help. Well, she's going to learn and hopefully assist with pairing with some of the environmental stuff. So we're excited for that. And I think that should do it unless anybody has any questions.
Questions, anybody? No? Okay,
All right.
thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
Thanks for being patient this morning.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, Mr. Holman,
Okay.
last but not least.
Made you wait since you went on vacation for so long.
Yeah.
Seems fair. Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Clancy Holman, Raleigh County Counselor. The car that I have in front of you is a return of the resolution on the submitting a ballot question on the 0.20 countywide retailer sales tax, funding road and bridge improvements. The last time, as the car indicates, it was brought to you, it had a rate of 0.25. And the board indicated you wanted to reduce that to 0.2. And that's what this does. Other than that, the resolution reads the same. The ballot question reflects the now lower rate. And so unless you have questions, I would ask for a motion approving that resolution.
I move to approve the resolution as submitted.
I would second that.
Okay, motion to approve resolution 080521 whatever that will be, resolution.
Yeah.
Submit to the qualified electors of Riley County the proposition of levying a 1/5 of 1%. How that reads, retailer sales tax for the purpose of funding bridge and roadway construction and improvements, including maintenance and reconstruction in the county. All those in favor? Aye. Aye.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks, Clancy.
The next item I want to run past you is I'd like to get your input if you wouldn't mind looking at calendars. I need to pick a few dates for the annual legislative conference with our delegation. You'll recall KAC is earlier this year, the annual meeting of KAC, at which it would be good to have had our conference so we can present and address questions. That portion of the annual
Sure.
meeting
That's that now, all of you.
where KAC goes over its legislative.
Sorry.
I would probably suggest mid-November. And I'm saying that because we have a municipal election and whoever wins or loses, we probably want to.
That's what I'm saying. KAC annual meeting is where they will actually, we need to really be before the KAC annual meeting, if possible, because, and I'll tell you, there's some good news about that too, because they've expressed, and I saw in the minutes, Craig pointed out, he was present during last Friday's meeting. There's some enthusiasm for those things we got on there, partly because, including the new item on the nuisance rate. They did express an interest, at least in that Zoom meeting, or maybe a separate educational program for all the attendees at the KAC annual meeting on dark store, which might be a good idea. Greg's presented to them before. I mean, there's been presentations, but it can't hurt. And so that may come up. But for that reason, I'd like to suggest a date sometime between now, either sometime at the end of August, sometime in September for the legislative conference. That's earlier than we usually do it, but I think it would be useful if we can. Reason being, it helps to show the membership that this isn't just something that's being proposed at the staff level, but it has the support of the board.
Okay, the legislative conference, explain exactly what it is
Sure,
to
I'll be
me.
glad to. And I should have started with that. Obviously, this year, I think it could easily be by Zoom, if that's, and probably end up best planned that way, I expect. But we have our delegation in. Normally it's for a lunch. It would be a virtual lunch this time. Whoever be responsible for their own food, but it would normally goes from noon to 2. And we have commissioners make just a brief welcome to our members of our state legislative delegation. We've had pretty good attendance the last few years.
it's a good opportunity for us to get some commitments from individual members of the delegation, what they're going to do to help on those specific items of legislation, and they're usually cooperative. Their history has been, we'll get a hand raised or two about somebody saying, yes, I can assist for that, or I can't for this reason, but maybe somebody else on the delegation. So
are these just Riley County legislators?
yes,
or do
just
they
our
all
state,
include
just,
anything else?
it's not any broader than your own state legislative.
Okay.
And it's an open meeting, so members of the public and the press can attend as well.
3 representatives in the Senate.
We got 4. We've got actually 4 total.
I know Susan Carlson.
Mike Dodson,
Highland,
Sidney Carlin.
Ron Highland.
Highland yours
that's
too?
Small section.
Part of
Riley
the piece
County.
of it. Okay, that's right.
Actually, yeah, there's a total of 5. But
I was gonna say,
I noticed last year doing it in Zoom, I don't think if you do it in person and offer them lunch, they're gonna be real enthusiastic about coming.
probably, I mean, that's possible. But as I said, we can have it after the KAC meeting. I mean, there's nothing that stops you from doing it. If that's what you'd like to do. You'd rather do it in November, that's when we can schedule.
It's just the ones on the left, I think. Right. The arrow, the yellow on the left side are ours. Those are Rich's over here on this side. Well,
We tried to make it as
that's
complicated
both.
as possible.
Kind of, maybe, sort of not.
I'm hoping that's what I did.
So what do we want to do?
Well, is this gonna be the same legislation we had at the, except for a couple of people at the chamber
Nope.
conference? This is just
No.
more
No.
concentrated.
This is that list that we sent to be approved for KAC. So include constitutional home rule, dark store.
Oh, okay.
Right.
LAV, return of LA, TVR, CCR funding, and then what is it? Senate Bill 52,
Nuisance
the
abatement.
Sedgwick County nuisance abatement.
Well, it's our version of that
Right.
bill.
Okay.
obviously.
Okay.
And then there was a couple other ones from a couple other counties, but that won't be included here, obviously.
This is specifically for your benefit to get somebody lined up on the delegation to do specific things.
To enter that legislation,
Yeah.
Right.
be the champion for it.
So we're gonna ask specific, are you gonna support it or not?
Mhm.
type of-
Well,
Okay.
it's
We
more,
met.
yeah,
Or see
usually
what
phrase in terms of who will support it.
Who will support it?
And actually, who will introduce it?
Yes, absolutely.
That's
Okay.
another reason why I think doing it now, August and September, the interest for that's just not gonna be, you get into November and December, you're getting closer to session time. And
Like I said, it's your choice when to do it. I'm just making a suggestion. It's not gonna hurt my
I'd still would
feelings.
like to maybe see mid-November myself, but I'm aligned to go with it however.
That's what you're looking at.
One, and I know I ran into Tom Hawk at the military relations yesterday. He was asking, are you guys still in doing dark, what are you doing? He was asking about dark store, right? But we're still pushing that.
Well, he had actually introduced it.
Yeah, so he was.
Confusing.
I believe
Yeah.
that's the one that he.
It's intentional.
I don't want to tag him with something he did introduce, but I believe that he was instrumental in that.
But yeah, like I said, I know in that thing in particular, and he was asking which, so I was gonna give him a list of the other things we've. And I was going through the list, I could not put finally, LAVTR, that's the one I picked. The other three I can remember, but there's another one.
That's okay. He's fully aware of that.
Yeah, I know, I know he's aware of it, but he was just asking. I was thinking, no, I got his 4, but took it off the brain to sort through and remember that.
Sure, and there will be, there's probably gonna be at least one other, I would assume, one other meeting of the KAC Legislative Policy Committee between now. Usually they have 3, I don't know if they have 3 this year.
Oh, it might be good to go into that conference, having that behind us. I don't know.
I just think if you're doing it in August or September, 3 or 4 months out before the start of
Get it before
yeah,
the end of the year.
yeah.
I haven't done it before.
Me either, so I don't know.
Well, we almost didn't do one last year, and I'd also think that that's a better meeting to try to have in person. I get other complications potentially, and that gives us a little bit more time to see how the rest of summer and fall goes out on that one. But I'll do whatever. If we want to do it this month
I don't care.
or next month, that's
And
fine too.
again, Zoom was just a suggestion.
Yeah, but we did it Zoom last year just because we had some new people and stuff on board, and I thought it went okay, but I think, you have to kind of, I think you have to have these conversations a little bit more in person.
I do
to get
too.
what you need to get done.
All right.
Do that, yeah.
Do you have an idea of when in November would make sense for you all? I know that's a ways
Before
off, but
Thanksgiving, probably.
time for me to start asking them.
Yeah, either the week of the 8th or the 12th or the 15th or 19th. It's the second and third week there.
8th to the 12th to the 19th.
Or just
3 weeks.
Yeah.
The first.
Yeah, before
Well,
Thanksgiving.
and I'd like to offer, I'm not gonna offer the whole thing, but is there, I'd rather go with 2 or 3 dates within that. That's what
I would do Monday or Thursday after this meeting. That's what we did 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Normally we do it, we started at noon.
Right.
And then just run it till 2 o'clock.
Right.
That's been the best.
Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of dates that you want.
So that would be 8th or the
If I give
11th.
them 3
The 8th and the 11th. 8th and the 11th of November.
Or the
Is that
fifteenth
correct?
and the
Correct.
15th and the 18th.
I thought you said the.
Oh, wait a minute. No,
You
it
said
can't
the
be,
week of
it won't be the 11th because 11th is Veterans Day.
Oh, yeah.
So it'll have to be the 8th, the 15th, and let's say the 18th. That'll be 3.
Okay. Those 3 dates work for the group?
Well, let's have a.
So
like a
far.
convention or something, intergovernmental, what is that? Or the city, county, those are lunches.
No, city county's at 4, so.
4,
it'd be a
okay.
little tight. The way those are going,
I'll throw those dates out in the delegation. The way I've normally done it in the past, it's tough to get everybody in the delegation on board. As soon as I get a majority, then I tell them that's the date. So your commission.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I got all these. If I didn't, I was
I think I
confused.
got it.
We'll check.
Who knows?
He's making a test.
Yeah.
The meeting today for us.
All right, thanks very much, unless you have something else. That's all.
I think we did everything.
We did finally get
Plus
through
few things,
everything.
yeah.
Plus some.
Okay, yeah, I guess that makes it official then. Do we have any other items of discussion today?
You really want
In
more?
5 minutes.
Do you really want more?
No.
They say no.
I don't have anything personally, but I leave the option open for anybody if they do.
I think we've discussed all that.
Okay.
Discussed and
We got the
discussed.
budget done. We got this sales tax thing moving forward. I don't want to discuss the other one. We'll just leave that.
You want to mention it?
So
I would make a motion to adjourn.
there you go.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded on adjournment of the